Welcome back to another FPL Deadline stream. I have activated the wildcard ahead of Game Week 6. It seems like a very popular strategy at the moment. We have 1 hour and 53 minutes until the deadline, so all your questions and comments will be answered, as well as all the key topics covered, such as the fitness of David Raya, which is integral, I think, for those on the Game Week 6 wildcard, and even more tricky to navigate for those that aren't using the chip this week. Thank you to those that have tuned in already. Let's try to get this stream to 200 likes, and we'll go for 100 plus nice and early, and then push on afterwards towards new goals. And we're also making big strides towards 30,000 subscribers, so once again, all your support is massively appreciated. Venom kicks things off, asking thoughts on Havertz captain. Can Dibbling be a good cheap enabler? I still like Havertz as a captaincy option, just not as much as a Saka, even Salah this week, who for me is probably the best option of the lot. Erling Haaland goes without saying. And you've got alternatives from other teams as well. But I think if Havertz plays up front, he's a great option against Leicester at home, even in Game Week 7 against Southampton. As for your second question, yeah, I think Dibbling can be a nice enabler. And one possible issue I have with my own squad at the moment is I've got arguably too much squad depth, so there will be bench points in most game weeks. I think someone like Dibbling at his price just opens up so many doors in other positions to make upgrades, and you'd also be more comfortable benching him more often than not. And whenever you need him to come on, he can do a good job for you. So I actually like Dibbling a lot amongst 4.5 million options. He's by far the best in the midfield or forward line. Aviad M says, hey Dylan, and good luck this week. Likewise to you. My question, I have Saka, Salah, Watkins, Jackson, Maddison and Diaz. Which one is the best to captain? I'd go for Salah this week. I do like Watkins, to be fair, and Saka is probably top 3 options for the captaincy, but I think Salah. And that's one of my regrets on the wildcard, not going for him, and I might still find a way to squeeze him in. But yeah, I think selling Salah this week could be catastrophic for Game Week 6 wildcarders. Morning to you as well, Batman. Good luck to this game week. Likewise to you and everyone else watching. Rawan says, start Robinson or Mikalenko. This is a tough one. I'd actually go for Mikalenko here, but he has been terrible so far this season, I do admit. Smith Rowe or Mbumo? Mbumo for sure. A quick question, do you know when the price changes happen exactly? Because I bought in Saka and Semenyo to not be priced out. I think at the moment they occur at 2:30 AM UK time, and once the clocks change in the United Kingdom in late October, it would be 1:30 AM for the price changes. So hopefully that is all quite clear. It should be 2:30 AM around that time. Sometimes it's something so specific like 2:33. The reason why I know this isn't because I'm making a constantly refreshing the site or anything. I've done it once or twice, but anyway, it's because on the Discord server we do have a bot that does inform us of those price changes and most of the key things you need for FPL. So be sure to join it. There is a link in the description. Sudendra says, hey Dylan, on wildcard and having Salah in my team, just 3 questions. Which of these goalkeepers should I have if Raya's out? I'll be honest, I've currently gone for Flecken, but I'm not a big fan. It's really because of the fixtures and the saves potential and kind of hoping that Brentford can solidify a little bit defensively and be in the top 8 for expected goals conceded like they were in the last couple of seasons under Thomas Frank. I think all of those options definitely have their merits. Pickford for the fixtures, Sells because of the defensive numbers Nottingham Forest are putting up, and Sanchez is playing in a top 4 competing team in Chelsea, but I'd probably go for Flecken at the moment out of those options. Once the chat is, not freezing, I can then get to your other questions here. Second question, which 2 defenders to have between Mikalenko, Collins, Colwill, Aina? Well, since I recommended Flecken for the first option, I'd probably go for one of Mikalenko or Aina here. I think going for a Forest defender looks quite decent. And final question, is it okay to have Havertz in my squad and not Saka to cover the Arsenal attack? It's definitely fine. I just prefer going for Saka. That's the reason why I started the season with Saka. I regret selling him for Salah, but now I'm going to regret selling Salah back to Saka, it seems. But yeah, I'd rather have Saka if I had to pick one. I also think with Odegaard's injury, Havertz will play a lot of games in the midfield whilst he's out. But the return of Marino next week or possibly after the international break is huge for Arsenal as well. Welcome FPL Kevy, my guy, good luck this week. 43 points, last time out. Really hoping for a better one today. Also, who's your differential of the week? That's a great question. I'm going to probably have to think about that. But yeah, 43 points. Obviously I did okay last week. I got a green arrow, but it was really game week 4 that was terrible and set me back quite a lot. So I'm hoping to make that ground up with the wild card. It might not be a 1 week thing, but there you go. I'll get back to you on that differential question because it's a really good one. I'm sure I can think of someone pretty decent with more thought. JP says, I've had Diaz since Gameweek 1. How long do you reckon I should keep him? Could sell to Saka. I think against Wolves away, you'd be tempted to keep Salah and or Diaz. And I think with Diaz's form, he's probably the favourite one right now due to value. But I think selling to Saka looks really good in the long term. It's just a question of timing. I wouldn't do it this week against Wolves away. And the same goes for Salah, but like I said, the budget is a big reason why I've currently gone without him. I'd probably say until Gameweek 7 or 8. And Liverpool's fixtures do turn around that time. They face Arsenal very soon, I believe in Gameweek 9. So, yeah, I think selling him to Saka in Gameweek 7 might be your best option. Oh, did Eze to Saka -4? What do you think? Yeah, I think Eze can do well against Everton, but I think Saka's an upgrade. He will, I think, make up that -4 hit. Hi Dylan, is it worth taking a -4 to take Raya out if we don't receive news, or just roll? I would just roll. I think Raya's injury won't be a long-term one, and that might be more hopeful than anything concrete, to be fair. But even if he misses against Leicester today, I don't see him missing many more matches, and he's the best goalkeeper in FPL. So I was actually considering, and it's still a possibility for me, on the wildcard to go with Raya and have no backup and just start with 10 players this week, but have Raya in place for the future. I really like Raya that much. He's had an excellent season so far, and he ended the last campaign quite strongly. So my advice would be to keep Raya and not take a -4 hit. So it's good to see so many people here and a lot of questions. I'm going to try to whiz through these so I can catch up. By the way, I don't want to get any hopes up, but the last time I checked, the membership gifting has been working. So very soon, I'm going to give 5 memberships. And towards the very end, once the deadline has closed, if you stay long enough and engage with the chat, you will have a great chance of being gifted a membership, so you gain access to many perks like early access to my videos. So be sure to check that out. And if you're here by the very end, you've got a great chance of winning it. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Rico Lewis start or not? I believe so. He's currently in my setup, but he's not going to be the most nailed on. We all know this with Lewis and all Man City defenders. It's going to be a risk, but at 4.7 million, if you've got the squad depth defensively, I'd highly recommend it. Hello Dylan, hope you're well. Which is better, Haaland, Havertz and Wood, or Haaland, Watkins and Solanke? Probably Haaland, Watkins and Solanke, but then what also plays a part in this question is which midfielders and defenders can you go for with both trios? And I think that's ultimately what decides it, but in isolation, I'd definitely go for Watkins, Solanke and Haaland. Start Konsa or Robinson? Konsa this week. Best forward under 5.4 million. Well, yeah, including 5.4 million, Raul Jimenez definitely springs to mind. You could go for Ross Stewart as a 4.5 million enabler, but he's really just going to sit on your bench. He's not someone you want to rely on week in, week out. I'd probably go for Raul Jimenez here. Wasif says, my previous plans were Pedro to Raul, but he rose in price. Oh, he's probably 5.5 now, isn't he? I'll have to double check that. So yeah, I think yesterday Raul Jimenez was 5.4. He probably isn't anymore. Yeah, that is a bit of a shame, but to be fair, Fulham's fixtures turn for the worse, and Jimenez is in great form, but will that continue? That remains to be seen. Hopefully it does. I need 0.1 million to upgrade Mateta to Solanke. Yeah, it's awkward, right? That's why some people may argue this is why I do early price changes or make early transfers to gain that value. I understand that, but look, I'm sure you'll find another way, and you can also make these upgrades eventually, but it just might take a bit more tinkering and also more transfers to do that. I'm not on a wild card, so I'm going with Raya because I can't afford him with his 5.6 million price tag. Yeah, no, I think for those with Raya without the wild card, I think you definitely keep, and that could be one major advantage over those that wild card. And yeah, it's a big shame for me because Raya was locked in on my wild card. The same with Wissa. A few weeks back, he was going to be a lock in my Gameweek 6 wild card, but unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. Good afternoon. I'm living in another time zone, it seems, Andrew. Good morning to you. Happy Saturday as well, and all the best of luck. I wish you the best for Gameweek 6. John Darren says, hi Dylan, Flecken and Saliba or Collins and Raya? Flecken and Saliba. It's close, but I'd go for the first duo. I also think Raya will miss out. We might as well get straight into that, by the way. I know there's a lot of questions, and thank you to those that have been tuning in. Keep on plugging away at the likes. Like I said, we're trying to get to 200 by the very end and make big strides towards 30,000. Also, keep your eyes peeled for use of your fantasy content over the weekend. The best Limitless team was published yesterday night. Also, the best wildcard team will be available shortly, the team selection and the deadline stream on Tuesday. Then your usual content for FPL ahead of Game Week 7, of course. The reaction stream, I'll try to do one tomorrow and I'll keep you posted if anything changes. But let's go for some different screens here. And we'll start off with the fixture difficulty rating. Brentford are now top until Game Week 11, with Man United, West Ham, Nottingham Forest and Everton in the top 5. If you look at the bottom teams, Brighton, Newcastle, Southampton, Fulham and Bournemouth are right down there. Even Liverpool, Arsenal and City aren't really ranked highly. Arsenal have some very tough games between Game Weeks 9 to 11, but the next 3 fixtures are fantastic. They would be top for that 3 game week period. If we look at predicted points for Game Week 6 specifically, Haaland is top with 8.1, closely followed by Salah and Saka. Palmer and Havertz make up the top 5, with Chris Wood, Gabriel, Eze, Watkins and Mbeumo in the top 10. So a lot of popular options for non-wildcarders and wildcarders alike there. Eze is someone I've sold. It would be very gutting if the likes of him and Salah ended up hauling after selling them on the wildcard. As for price changes, these are the updated metrics. So Gabriel, Dalot, Greaves, Haaland, Dibbling, Konsa, Colwill and Konate could all go up in price tonight. As for those that could fall in price, that includes Quansah, Foden, João Pedro, Diogo Jota, who scored a brace against West Ham in the Carabao Cup, Isak, Salah, Pedro Porro, Soufal, Steele, Yarmouk, Eze, Wissa, Burn, Gordon, and we could see even more price changes happen over the next couple of days. Diaz is being bought in by so many people. He's actually gone up in price by 0.2 million throughout the week, and it could be another price rise very early on ahead of Game Week 7. So a lot of price changes happening in the last couple of days. But I have to say, with this being such a popular week to wildcard, some of these metrics might be a bit unreliable because with the wildcard, that doesn't influence price changes as much. So bear that in mind when seeing all these potential price rises and falls. As for Drafthound, there is a link in the description below. This is the updated wildcard team. Now, there are some really good picks in here, but I have to say there are some that I heavily disagree with, like Bogard, who might not even start. You've got Matty Cash nearing a return. Diego Carlos played at centre-back, shifting Konsa to the right in the last Premier League game. You've also got Nedeljkovic, who, to be fair, I think Bogard is ahead in the pecking order, but Sanchez in goal is a great pick. Gabriel, Keane and Bogard with Salah, Diaz, Saka and Mbeumo. That is an extremely strong midfield, but unfortunately, considering how weak the defensive line is, you'd probably have to make a downgrade in that area. Haaland, Raul Jimenez and Ndiaye up front. I actually like that pick based on his performance against Leicester. He was much more impressive than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The reason why I've currently gone for Calvert-Lewin, though, is the penalties, and he'll get the bulk of the chances, always in the box, whilst Ndiaye floats around on the edge of the area. But the bench includes Muric, who's a good option, Dibbling, O'Shea, and Tuanzebe. And in terms of budget enablers, Dibbling is one of my favourites in the midfield at 4.5 million. They also have the optimization tool here. This is for my non-wildcard team. And as you can see, it doesn't look particularly great, does it? Although Jota is actually rated higher now, and a lot of, maybe not a lot, but a few predicted lineups do have Jota in the starting 11, but I did have some big issues. Unfortunately, though, going from Henderson to Fleck, and I'll be quite honest with you, I don't see it as a major upgrade. One of the key reasons, maybe not key reasons, but one reason for making the wild card was to really bolster that goalkeeper position amongst many others. I don't really see Henderson to Flecken being that, but if it was Raya instead, we're talking about a different animal entirely. Let's show you some polls I put out on my channel, by the way. So Mikel Arteta said on David Raya yesterday, we have to wait another 24 hours. We have to wait 24 hours to see if it's looking good or not. It's not about risk. It is about a player being fit or available. We will make a decision tomorrow. So 62% of you believe Raya will start. Unfortunately, though, we did get an update about David Raya very recently. And it's that he wasn't with the Arsenal squad at the team hotel. Now, some of you might be thinking, why would the Arsenal players be at a team hotel when they've got a home game? It's always the case. They always have these meetings in a hotel. Even if it's a home match, it's kind of standard procedure there. So that is obviously very worrying signs. And even other sources have indicated, I think one of them was Team News and Ticks, that as things stand, it looks like Raya will miss out, but he hasn't been officially or completely, let's say, left out of the squad. It's not 100% set in, but it's looking very likely that Raya will not play against Leicester today, at 3 p.m. I believe the game is. So yeah, it's going to be a massive blow, I think. But Neto can come in for Bournemouth. It won't be the 16-year-old Porter who played against Bolton in the Carabao Cup the other day. The only reason he played is because Neto was cup-tied, which was maybe an oversight when Arsenal made that transfer of Neto from Bournemouth on loan. Let's also look at other polls. So which goalkeeper will you go for on the Game Week 6 wildcard, assuming that Raya is out and you don't want to go there? Flecking is top with 51% of the vote. Second, or joint second, is actually Robert Sanchez, and the other option with Onana in last. I think he's decent, actually. Maybe a bit overlooked, but I'd rather go for Mazraoui to cover that United defence. Also vote for your Game Week 6 captain. Haaland is top with 62%. Salah second with 20%. Saka third, and then the other option is last. I think Watkins would definitely enter that sort of captaincy conversation. Finally, choose your favourite amongst these budget midfielders. Semenyo is top with 38%, Rodgers second, and Smith Rowe third. The likes of McNeil and Dibbling. And by the way, I would include more options if I could with the image polls, but we are limited to 4 on YouTube. But yeah, Dibbling would have been another one I was considering for this kind of bracket. But I do think the top 3 here in Semenyo, Rodgers, and Smith Rowe are far above the rest, in my opinion. Finally, let's go to a stats comparison of Saka and Palmer. On the wildcard, I would go for Saka, mainly because of the fixtures, but their stats are identical. The same number of shots in 11. They've got the same number of goal contributions, 1 goal and 5 assists for Saka, whilst Palmer has 2 goals and 4 assists. The XG is also identical, and the expected assists, but they're both slightly in Saka's favour. 3 big chances for each. 5 big chance cred as well for the pair of them, and 13 key passes for Palmer compared to Saka's 12. So very, very even, but Saka does lead ever so slightly in the underlying stats, but they're both quality players on penalties, and they'll be right up there amongst the highest scoring FPL players this season, just like in the last campaign, and it will be a trend for the next couple of years. Let's go back now to my team and to your questions. This wildcard team isn't locked in, so bear that in mind. Because, yeah, I'm someone who likes to think until the very end. Trust me, this is not over just yet. So once we get to, I'd say 100 likes, I'm going to give 5 memberships. And then, like I said, towards the very end, I'll be gifting another 5 after the deadline has passed. So we'll be doing that very soon. But let's get to your questions again. Hey, Dylan, would you start Vardy or Rico Lewis? I'd go for Rico Lewis this week. I don't think Vardy is a bad option, but facing Arsenal away, you'd probably go in the other direction. Yep, Palmer and Saka is more than okay. It's, 2 of the best midfielders in the game. Is Neto 4 million? Can't you just get Raya and Neto? And Neto is 4.5 million because he started the season at Bournemouth, and I also don't think that's a great use of your Arsenal spot. A lot of people will want to go for a Havertz up front or Saka. You've also got Gabriel and Saliba. I don't think... Look, it did cross my mind, I won't deny that, but I just don't think it's worth it. Hello, Dylan. What do you think about Timber? He was in training. There were some worries that he picked up an injury against Man City, and he just came back from that ACL injury from last season. So, look, I think Timber's a quality player. He's very versatile. He can play as a left-back, on the right, and as a centre-back. And in my opinion, he can even play in holding midfield, but... I'd rather go for Saliba or Gabriel for the certainty, and long-term, Raya would be another great shout. I think he's the best entry to the Arsenal defence, but unfortunately, Raya could miss the Leicester City game. Son and Gordon to Saka and Mbeumo -4. Thoughts? I'd actually do it for a -4. I'm always a bit careful with this sort of question with a -4, but I think it's honestly worth it. Start Rodgers or Wood? Probably Chris Wood, but it's a close one. Very, very close. What to do with Raya, says Hill. I think if you don't have the wild card, I'd definitely keep him. For those on the wild card, you probably do go without, unfortunately. But I honestly wouldn't mind just sticking him on the wild card. If he misses 1 week, then you have him in place for Game Week 7 and beyond. He is my favourite goalkeeper from now until the end of the season. Is Salah Diaz triple captain a good shout this week? It's not bad whatsoever. I personally wouldn't go there, but I also said this for Haaland against West Ham, and he scored a hat-trick. I just think my gut feeling would say no. If I had Salah, and of course I do have Diaz at the moment, yeah, I don't think I'd triple captain them. Welcome, Jamie. Hello, Dylan. Transferring out my Joao Pedro and Fernandes for Jackson and Rodgers. What do you think? Well, Rodgers amongst 5.2 million midfielders and below. You're not going to get much better than that. I think Dibbling's the only one who can really compete at that price point. Then you've got Jackson. I like him a lot for the next 2 fixtures, but Chelsea's games really turn for the worse from Game Week 8 onwards, so I'd actually rather go for Solanke longer term and Kai Havertz if you want to really go in on the Arsenal attack for the next 3 game weeks. So don't get me wrong, I like Jackson for the next 2, but looking beyond that, I think there are better options elsewhere. And I'm currently going for this kind of budget striker policy with Chris Wood and Calvert-Lewin. That could easily become Vardy or somebody else. So good transfers, but I'd probably consider Solanke or Havertz instead of Jackson. Duncan says Son and Winks to Maddison and Mbeumo. Another good set of transfers, to be fair. Mbeumo is a great one. Maddison has got really high XGI, expected goal involvements. I'd probably do it, but once again, it comes down to alternatives for Maddison in this case. So I think Jared Bowen would be my pick over James Maddison. Konsa or Lewis? I'd go for Konsa this week. Should I keep Madueke or sell him for Semenyo? I'd sell him to Semenyo. Even back when he scored the hat-trick, I said he was a skip. I've never liked him as an FPL option. He might become good, and he might have those weeks where he goes ballistic, but I honestly would skip Madueke, and if possible, sell him this week. Start Rodgers or Wood? Yeah, I just covered that, sorry. So I did the same wildcard. I can't get Saliba, and I have 4.9 million. Please suggest replacement. At 4.9 million, Mazraoui would be a decent one. Then you could start Rico Lewis or Mikolenko in this case. Bench Mazraoui this week, but he's another one I'm really looking at amongst defenders. I'm buying Palmer in Game Week 12. That's fair. I mean, he is fixture-proof, but I don't like Chelsea's fixtures after the next 2. And even then, they're not exactly the greatest. They're marked green on the FDR, but they're not that good. No, Chris Wood isn't mandatory. He never will be, and he never has. He's a decent option. At that price, he offers great value. But you've got so many options like Vardy, Calvert-Lewin, Raul Jimenez, Joao Pedro when he's fit, Danny Welbeck. So no, he's not mandatory. Hi, should I keep Madueke? Sorry, I covered that. Omar says I'm on a wild card. Should I avoid Raya for now and transfer him in when he's fit? That's what I'm looking to do at the moment on the wild card. But yeah, it's not an ideal situation. I would rather he's fit and also plays. But unfortunately, it looks like he's going to miss out. I'd probably avoid him for now. Chris B says, hi Dylan, what do you think about Savio over Rodgers with the Raya savings? Yeah, Savio could be a nice punt on the wild card. But with City, you're always going to get these frustrations and rotation. And even myself with Lewis, it's something I'm kind of prepared for. So as long as you've got the squad depth in the midfield and forward line, I think you're good to go with that. But I personally prefer Rodgers because he's cheaper and he also is locked in for that Aston Villa team, it seems. Start Lewis or Konsa? I'd go for Konsa this week. Now, some people did ask me, why do you not go for Konsa on the wild card? Because the fixtures turn very soon for Aston Villa, and I don't trust them defensively. It's as simple as that. Whilst with Rico Lewis, high upside, if he plays week in, week out, or at least most matches, which is what I expect, then I think he can keep plenty of clean sheets and get a few assists along the way. Yali says, Trent and Rico Lewis or Robertson and Gvardiol? Trent and Rico Lewis, but both duos are very solid. Easy99 says, I buy Havertz, also no wildcard this early. I'll do it around Game Week 10 and above. I'm still happy with my original team. That's fair enough. I mean, if you're happy with your team, there's no need to wildcard. I had quite a lot of issues with my squad. That's why I decided to pull the trigger. How confident are you that Diaz starts? Fairly confident. I mean, he was rested against West Ham in the Carabao, right? Will he start week in, week out in the Premier League? No, he won't. And that's where the squad depth really comes into play. I had Chris Wood come off the bench for Diogo Jota last week, so that is the benefit of having that sort of 8-man attack at times. Rodgers or Onana? Rodgers. Start Rodgers or Welbeck? Rodgers. Would you take a -4 to bring Gabriel in and Robertson out? No. I wouldn't do that. Salah's really causing me headaches. My team would be so much manageable without. Just have a feeling he'll haul. I agree. I think going without him opens up the doors for a really balanced team, even with Haaland. But selling him against Wolves away is just... It seems like a mistake waiting to happen, doesn't it? So I'm kind of at peace with the fact he'll probably score a few goals, probably get a massive return. And he would be my captain if I end up going for him again. Yeah, this is my wildcard team, it says in the title. JP says stuck on Saka and Haaland captaincy. I don't blame you. And if you look beyond them, you've got Salah and Watkins for other people. My favourite overall would be Salah. And from those you mentioned, I'm going for Haaland at the moment. While the 2 Brentford goalkeepers, well, if Flecken is, well, if he gets injured or if he misses out, I've got Valdimarsson to come in. and that kind of solves that issue. And I also don't see myself going for a third Brentford asset, and that includes Collins, Van den Berg, Schade, possibly other options like Fabio Carvalho. If Wissa was available, my Brentford triple up, if I were to go for one, would be Flecken and Boomer and Wissa, but that isn't the case. Hey Dylan, please suggest a defender under 5.2. Apart from the ones you see on screen, I'd say Mazraoui from Man United. McNeil and Greaves or Dibbling and a 5 million defender to be my fourth defender. If so, who? Already own Mikalenko and Lewis. Difficult one. I'd probably go for Dibbling and the 5 million defender, and that could be Mazraoui again. You might not want to start him this week, but from Game Week 8 onwards, United have some good fixtures coming up. Aina or Lewis, who to start? Very close one. I think I'd go for Lewis. Your Newcastle City prediction. I think City get the win here, but it might be a very close battle. I'm kind of leaning towards 2-1 or 3-1, Man City. I'll go for 3-1 this time. 3-1? Yeah, I'm going to stick with 3-1 at the moment, but I'll give my updated predictions at the very end. Who to start, Fernandes or Maddison? I'd go for Fernandes in this battle. Semenyo in for Gibbs White. He is suspended. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Saha says start who? Dalot, Lewis, Mikalenko. That is a close battle. I'd probably go for Lewis. Now, bear in mind, he is also a very tricky one because of the rotation. So that's not going to be locked in or nailed. It's not a secure option. But I'd go for Lewis here. Rodgers or Smith-Rowe? I'm going for Smith-Rowe right now. I just think he's been more impressive this season from an FPL perspective. I think Rodgers has played really well overall. He does seem like a point dodger, but he finally got his first few goal contributions in Game Week 5. But I'll probably stick with Smith-Rowe here. John Green says, hi Dylan, Raya and Keane or Sanchez and Lewis? I have Greaves already. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of having two 4 million defenders, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend Keane to anybody because Branthwaite is on the verge of returning. Once that's the case, he will partner Tarkowski in central defence and Keane will drop out. So don't go for Keane would be my advice. So as a result, I'd go for Sanchez and Lewis. Collins and Raya or Flecken and a 5.8 million defender? Probably Flecken and a 5.8 million defender, and that could be Bodra. Who do you recommend as a Raya alternative? I don't really trust Flecken. I don't either, trust me. Sanchez would be okay, but as I mentioned with Jackson earlier, Chelsea's fixtures are pretty mediocre from Game Week 8 onwards. Even the next two, I don't see many clean sheets. I know they kept one against West Ham and Bournemouth, so they've been on a roll recently, but I don't see that really sticking in the long term. I think they'll be fairly inconsistent defensively. Winks or Stewart? Probably Stewart here. Start Robinson or Rico Lewis? Rico Lewis. Trent or Van Dijk? Trent all day long for me, if money's no issue. Salah or Haaland? Haaland overall. For this week, I think Salah, but unfortunately, I don't have him. Your Arsenal-Leicester prediction. Even if Raya were to start, I've got a sneaky feeling Leicester score. Am I going to say 3-1 again? Probably. Yeah, 3-1 Arsenal. I think 3-1 Arsenal. Might change to City 1 to 2-1, but yeah. Like I said, I'll give my final predictions at the very end. What's your squad value at the moment? How much do you have overall? I don't really pay too much attention to that sort of thing, but according to the FPL website, my squad value is 100.4 million. Actually, no, sorry, that is not the right team. Sorry, that was my family member's team. So, awkward. That is very awkward. Let me check on the app. So, give me a second. It's probably a bit higher than that. I'd imagine 101 million-ish, maybe close to 102. But I could be completely wrong about this. Where is this bloody thing? I have to go to the... You know what, I'm just going to go here and see what it says on the FPL website. So, yeah, 101.1 million squad value, and in the bank I've got 0.2 million available. So it'd be approximately 101.3, something like that. Of course, it does vary for everybody depending on when you bought certain players, the selling value and stuff like that. But yeah, 101.3 million is the answer. I've got clashes, Aina versus Smith-Rowe and Mikalenko versus Eze. Start free. Probably Aina, Smith-Rowe and Eze. Yeah, Salah captain for me this week, yeah. I'm just convinced, especially if I sell him, that he's going to do well, so I'm kind of resigned to it. Yeah, possibly Batman. I mean, it's just that's why, for example, sometimes in UCL Fantasy, I don't really show things until the very end, just to prevent or at least minimize copying, but it is what it is. Is Muric a good backup for Raya today on my wildcard? Yeah, I think so. But do you need to spend that much on goalkeepers? I know your reasoning for it, to not be down to 10 men this week, which is perfectly reasonable, but longer term, you'd probably want to save a bit of money there. But Muric is fine at 4.4. Best midfielder for 8.9 million or under in Boomer. Hi Dylan, I'm wildcarding. I'm so confused about Tavernier, Evanilson or Raul Jimenez. Who should I keep? Well, Bournemouth's fixtures are great for the next two, but I'd recommend Semenyo instead of Tavernier or Evanilson. So Phobia, my advice would be to go for Semenyo for Bournemouth coverage. And up front, out of those three, I'd keep Raul Jimenez. But honestly, I think there are better options than all three of them. So yeah, Semenyo Rogers, Semenyo this week. Jota, Rogers, DCL, Madueke, bench one. Yeah, I'd probably bench Madueke as well. Thoughts on keeping Raya for this match day? It's fine. I mean, you might be down to 10 men in Game Week 6, but if it's not a long-term issue, you've got him in place for the future. And even with that one game, you know, let's say, for example, he misses Leicester today, I could still see him outscoring every goalkeeper from now until the end of the season. But then again, you will have a second wild card later in the campaign, so that's not too relevant, you could argue. But I just think Raya's that good, so I can understand why you'd want to keep him. Yeah, Wood. Vardy would be a good replacement for Wood, yeah. I'm 0.4 million. That's absolutely fine. I've got Chris Wood because I've had him from Game Week 1. I've got value tied up in him. Some good fixtures coming up and a bit of confidence now. That means he'll probably start blanking. Thoughts on Paqueta? Not really fancying that. I'd rather go for Bowen. Kudus is another one if he can get into some form goal scoring wise, but yeah, I'm not really interested in Paqueta. So, cheers to those that have been tuning in throughout. By the way, don't tell me that I've missed a super chat. Let me check that. Yeah, I don't know why. For some reason, YouTube don't actually show me the super chat. I have to like toggle it. So thank you, Aranya, for the super chat. Hi, Dylan. Are Villa being overlooked this game week? Possibly, but on a Game Week 6 wildcard, yeah, you've got Ipswich away this week, but afterwards, it's not that great. You've got some tough fixtures like Man United. I think historically, Villa have actually struggled a lot against them. So don't get me wrong. I like Watkins, Rodgers. I think Konsa's not bad as a 5th or 4th defender, but I don't see Villa keeping many clean sheets. Possibly this week, but beyond that, not many. Watkins is always good, even when the fixtures turn for the worse. Rodgers is so cheap. I might even go for him for Smith Rowe, to be fair, so that's something I'm considering. But you are right. I think they are being overlooked a little bit, but you've got so many options from other clubs at similar price points, so I don't think it's that bad of a thing to go about Villa assets in Game Week 6. Yeah, this is my current team, but I might make some changes, to be honest. I don't think Raya will start this week. Mikel doesn't want to risk his best goalkeeper, especially when Arsenal have PSG in the Champions League. Yeah, I agree. Obviously, with the goalkeepers, they're less prone to get injuries, but it's still possible. Sanchez will save 3 penalties today. He's been in good form, to be fair, but of course, there's still some doubts about him overall, but he's doing the job. Best 4.6 defender? Probably Mazraoui. If I don't go for Saliba or Gabriel, and I trim down my Arsenal defence, I think Mazraoui could come in for me. Callum Jr. says, Morning Dylan, have been very unlucky with Wissa and Joao Pedro. Plan to bench him anyway and use all 3 transfers elsewhere next week. Could be a differential against Spurs and Wolves if back. Yeah, that's very unlucky with the injuries. I think Wissa was a great option on the Game Week 6 wildcard, considering his form and the fixtures that Brentford now have. That's a big shame. And of course, Joao Pedro, one of my worst transfers this season. There's no two ways about it. And then again, I've only made 3 transfers so far, and they haven't been great overall. Dunk has been meh. I mean, he's gave me a few points. Salah to Saka hasn't worked out. So it is what it is. I think this all ebbs and flows. I do agree with you, though. I think once he's back, he could be a nice differential. Hey, Dylan, Smith Rowe or Larson? Smith Rowe. Who's a better Man City player to take other than Haaland? Rico Lewis for me. If not, you're looking at Gvardiol. Akanji's not a bad shout to cover their defense, but I think Rico Lewis. So yeah, thoughts behind Rico Lewis? I think with the Rodri injury, that opens up the door for him to start a lot of games. Now, it is a small sample size, but for the first 4 game weeks, Rico Lewis was starting every single match, and you had no Rodri in the team. So I do think there is a bit of a link there. Maybe not as heavy as I would insinuate there, but yeah, I think Rico Lewis won't start every game, but he'll start a lot of matches in the Premier League. And if you've got good defensive depth and rotation, I don't think it'll be a big issue for your squad to have him. So at 4.7 million, he's worth a punt. So Hassan says Pedro Porro to Wood Semenyo or Eze Pedro to Wood Semenyo. Right. Yeah, I'm just a bit confused because you're saying Porro and Pedro to Wood and Semenyo, but then you're selling a defender for an attacker. I don't know how that works, but yeah, I think I'd rather do the first option. So bench Porro, I'm guessing that is, or sell him. I'd rather start Eze this week if that's really what it comes down to. No, it's good to overlook Villa this week. They face Bayern next week. There'll be rotations. I still think they'll go quite strong though, because they benched the likes of Rodgers and Watkins, even Konsa in the Carabao Cup midweek. They might play fewer minutes. We're talking about 60, 70. But you are right that they will probably have an eye on that Bayern Munich game. And this is where they can start to struggle this season, you know, balancing the Champions League and the Prem. Thoughts on Maddison with his high expected assists? Yeah, even his XGI, his expected goal involvements overall, has been very, you know, it's right up there. I think only Haaland is above him. But I'm not really a big fan. He's had a decent start to the season, even before the recent run he's been on. He was putting in some good performances. I think he got an assist against Newcastle and also in Gameweek 1 against Leicester, his former club. But I think Mbeumo and Bowen are better options. Diaz as well at a similar price. Raya spotted at the hotel. This is going to be a saga, isn't it? Oh, I appreciate the update. I'll have a look myself. Oh dear, this is not going to end, is it? I mean, I'll probably get Raya back if he is actually in the hotel. Welcome, Beardy. Good to see you. Who will start at goal for Arsenal in Raya's absence? If you were to miss out, it'd be Neto, 100%. Thank you, Aranya, for the super chat. So, with no budget limits, pick one between Calvert-Lewin and Solanke. Probably would be Solanke. And that's something I'm looking at for my own team and setup, because it also allows you to maybe go for Havertz for the next 2 to 3 game weeks. Then you can move to Solanke, and Spurs have good fixtures until game week 11. So essentially in game week 12 they play Man City, but before that they've got some pretty good fixtures where they can go on a bit of a run. So yeah, Solanke's decent. He got a goal and assist against Karabag in midweek, and I think he might start coming into form now. So yeah, I'd go for Solanke if possible. Porro or Lewis? I'd go for Lewis this week. Yeah, I think selling Smith Rowe can be a regret. The same goes for Eze. All these options, you know, we picked them for a reason. So there's always a chance that it can backfire. If no Raya, then Martinez. I don't trust Villa defensively. So it might be a clean sheet against Ipswich, but I'm not really counting on it. I personally would rather go for Flecken in this case, although Brentford aren't great defensively. So yeah, just like Aranya said, I'd go for Solanke. That is my preference if money is no issue. Captain Saka, Salah or Haaland? Salah. Thank you, John Paul. Keep up the brilliant work, Dylan. Gabriel and Saliba for Keane, Michael and Gavardio for a -4. Yes, would be my answer. You could consider keeping Gavardio. Wait, could you do that? Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, of course you can, because Gavardio's cheaper. Yeah, I'd consider just making one free transfer for now, keeping Gavardio for 1 more week, and then buying Saliba. But I don't really mind that for a -4 hit, to be honest. Just having a look at the Raya news and seeing if I can get anything on Twitter, but yeah, I'm not too sure. So yeah, if others have seen that news, be sure to let me know about David Raya, but yeah, that could be encouraging. If Foden starts, should I take out Son for a hit? Not for a hit, no. But Foden with that fixture run could be fantastic. Just bear in mind when De Bruyne is back, you would see rotation, not necessarily between those two, but Man City have so many options in those positions. Underrated pick for FPL that people don't talk about that much. That is a great question. That's a very tricky one. It seems like everyone's talked about and put through a microscopic lens. So, yeah. This also goes back to the question posed earlier that I did say I'll try to get back to, the best differential. So I'm going to have to think about that more whilst I answer other questions, because it's a tough one. What's the plan to get Raya back for Gameweek 6 wildcarders? Well, you would want to avoid, goalkeeper transfers if possible, but I'm in a position where I've got 2 free transfers and I activate the wildcard before making any transfers, so I will still have 2 available for Gameweek 7. That makes it slightly easier for me to make such a move, but yeah, ideally I just have a set and forget goalkeeper. If I see news from a reliable source that kind of indicates Raya will play, I will have him in my team, and I will change things around a little bit with what you see right now. Antonio or Strand Larsen? Probably Strand Larsen at this point. Gvardio or Aina to start? Gvardio. Crispy says Joao Pedro out for DCL for -4 only. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of a hit for that sort of move. If you've got decent coverage off your bench, you could just stick with that for now. That could include a Rodgers or Smith Rowe, by the way, which is, more than enough. But if you've got nobody to come in, or not someone you trust, then fair enough, I'd take the hit. Calvert-Lewin has great fixtures until Gameweek 14. Will Martinelli be nailed for Arsenal? He will be benched from time to time, especially with the Champions League, the other cup competitions like the Carabao for now. So I don't think he's nailed, no. Do I think he'll start today? Yeah. Probably against Southampton in Gameweek 7 as well, but Sterling as well is knocking on the door. He got a goal and an assist in his first start against Bolton. Of course, different circumstances and context. He played a League One side, but yeah, I don't think he's nailed on. Would you play Matoma or Madueke or take a hit for Semenyo? I'd probably play... This is a tricky one, by the way, but I'd probably play Matoma. I know there's this direct clash between the two, but that's the way I see it. Start Sanchez or Flecken? Probably Flecken. I don't think either team keep a clean sheet, but if I had to pick one that's a bit more likely, it would be Brentford. He's also got the saves potential, so I'd go for Flecken here. Eze and Joao Pedro to Semenyo and Wood. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Selling Eze can backfire, but that's always the case with a player of that quality. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I'd go for Lewis, as mentioned earlier. Hi, Dylan. Thoughts on Watkins? Great option this week. Now, Villa might have an eye on the Bayern Munich game in midweek, so I'm not that keen on Villa, as maybe other people would be, but Watkins is always a great option. So, yeah, you won't find me talking badly about him as an FPL choice. I think he's really, really good. Hey, Dylan, I did my wildcard last week. Should I take Raya out for a -4? No. And there are rumours that Raya was in the hotel today, so keep an eye out for that situation anyway. I don't think a -4 hit is worth it in this case. If it was for free, then maybe, but not for a -4. I'd go for Luka Dean this week, but once again, Villa have an eye on that Bayern Munich game. They're not reliable defensively, so thank you, Weiseng, for moderating the chat. Gonna go big on goalkeepers, and it's worked so far. Sorry, gone big. So got Onana coming on for Raya. Do I start Garnacho over Solanke, hoping for a United clean sheet? Yeah, I'd go for Garnacho over Solanke in this matchup. I think United are more likely to win. They've also got a good home record against Tottenham, barring that 6-1 defeat a few years ago. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of going big on goalkeepers. It might have worked well for you up until now, but it does limit you in the outfield areas, in my opinion. I think having Onana and Raya, I mean, we're talking about, what, 10.6 million for 2 goalkeepers? I know they're good options, but I think that's way too excessive. Good luck as well, Khalid. Vandenberg or Greaves? I'd go for Greaves. Seri, I did answer your question, mate. It was highlighted. You were already timed out, or I think your message was removed. So, yeah, there's really no reason for you to do that. Let me actually just gift 5 memberships, by the way. And hopefully he doesn't get it, based on what he's doing. Once we get to 100 likes, like I said, I will be gifting 5 memberships. I'm just going to have a look now at the Raya news that we're supposedly getting. So yeah, let me just deal with this as well. All right, that is sorted. All right, so yeah, let's get to 100 likes. We're going to give 5 memberships now, and then 5 more towards the very end. Start Welbeck or DCL? Calvert-Lewin. Start Wood or Jackson? I'd go for Jackson this week. Carvalho, is he a good option playing out of position? Potentially, but I could see rotation for him. I know Wissa's out, which opens the door, but there is the possibility for Brentford to go for Lewis Potts on the left, Sharda on the right, and then Mbumo down the middle. They could do something like that. So I'm a bit, cautious about that sort of move. And you've also got Dibbling at 4.5 million, but even better, you've got Rogers, Semenyo, and Smith Rowe, who for me are better options than Fabio Carvalho. Mikalenko or Robinson? This week, probably Mikalenko. Gundogan or Martinelli or Bowen as a differential? Bowen. By the way, speaking of which, I think Bowen would enter my thinking there. It's just a shame that West Ham are in terrible form, but I think Bowen is actually a great shout for those questions I got earlier about the best differential and who is being overlooked. Why is this a good week to wildcard? I have covered this in previous weeks heading into 6, so I think one of the key reasons why is the fixture swings for the teams like Arsenal and Brentford. And in my case, for example, I had no Arsenal players, partly because I was a fool. I didn't start the season with Raya or an Arsenal defender. That's my mistake. And I also sold Saka to Salah in Gameweek 4. So I think for myself, it just immediately allows me to get 2 to 3 Arsenal players, also get Mbumo, and fix all of my issues in my team, like Gordon, Jota, amongst many others, like Dunk and Barco, who are still on my team. Dean Henderson, not really a great choice in goal, but you could argue Fleckin isn't either. So if Raya is available, I will look to buy him back in, because I did have him on the wild card throughout the week. Let me just check this video, by the way, very quickly and see, because I think people have mentioned the Raya news, so I'm just going to verify it myself. Okay, so I think it's the same source that said it yesterday about David Raya not being in the hotel. So I'm going to have a look myself. Let's see if I can find his page, because I have seen his page before. Yeah, just going to have a look here. See if I can find it. Yeah, I can't remember the exact username, but I think it's the same one that posted the Raya not in the hotel yesterday. Yeah, Son's a good pick, but there are better elsewhere. I've always said this. Palmer and Saka at a similar price are even better. Do I bench Wood or Rogers? I'd probably bench Rogers here, but it's a very close call. It can go either way. In the previous day, I've asked this in the Discord. If I couldn't get any Arsenal defender before Gameweek 8, is that I should just focus on attacker transfer instead. Probably delay the wildcard to around Gameweek 11, 12. No, that's fine. And for a free Gameweek period, I don't mind going for Havertz and Saka as an offensive duo. Then you've got Gabriel at the back. That's more than enough. I just think longer term, you'd rather have that triple up in the Arsenal. Well, a triple up in Arsenal is good, but having 2 in the defence is probably better than the attack, considering how they've started this season. But yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely fine. Then delaying the wildcard until 11 or 12, if you're happy with your team, don't have that many fires to put out, and that's more, it's very reasonable. Same team as you, but can't afford Raya if I have Solanke in. I don't think Raya's essential, but I think he's the best goalkeeper in the game. That's the way I see it. Missed out on Haaland hat-trick, but Wolves lost every home game. Still feels risky to captain Salah. It's a risk either way. We're talking about 2 of the best FPL options of all time. I just prefer Salah because of the fixture. But I just think longer term, going without him opens up the doors. You wouldn't go without Haaland on the wildcard, would you, with City's run from Gameweek 7 onwards? I had Raya in at 5.5. Is it worth switching to Fleckin? I wouldn't do it just yet. I'd probably do it in, well, closer to the deadline. I can't even speak. So I'd say probably in less than an hour's time, in 40, 50 minutes, because we could get confirmation by that stage about David Raya. So reports last night indicate he wasn't in the hotel, but apparently this morning he was spotted with the team. So if that's the case, he's going to start. But I'm trying to verify the source. I think it's Tiki Taka Connor, but I can't actually get the name up. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. I've just got it here. So let's see what he put on Twitter. Has he put anything? No, I don't think he's put anything on his Twitter. Okay, well, anyway, the news is circulating around about David Raya in the hotel. So if you do see anything else, let me know in the live chat and put a link. That would be greatly appreciated. Solanke and Lewis or DCL and Gvardiol? Solanke and Lewis, but both duos are really good. Play 1, Stewart, Brennan Johnson Fass. It beat Brennan Johnson here, yeah. He's in good form as well. Havertz and Semenyo or Watkins and Rodgers? Very, very close one. I'd probably lean towards Havertz and Semenyo. And the main reason why is Villa's fixtures turn for the worse very soon. And they've got Bayern Munich in midweek. So I think that'll be a very tough period to navigate. Well, it wouldn't necessarily be for a week, mate. Flecken would be a long-term pick. And I also don't see Chelsea keeping a clean sheet against Brighton. I think it's a tougher fixture than West Ham at home. So, yeah, I'd rather have Flecken than Sanchez. Thank you, Craig. Haaland or Watkins captain? Probably Haaland, but Watkins is a great shout. He's in my top 5 this week. 2 defenders from Lewis, Bodro and Robinson. It'd be Lewis and probably Robinson here. Yeah, I can see that. I'm making a lot of changes or, you know, tinkering a lot with my wildcard and my bench order, so I can relate to that completely. Hi, Dylan. Play Mizraoui or Robinson? Robinson this week. I think Spurs score. Salah or Haaland for Game Week 6 captain? Salah. Plan to get Gabriel next week, however, been put off by people saying he could be rested at times, especially after the international break. What are your thoughts on that? Well, that's always a possibility, but Gabriel, whenever he's fit, if he's got no risk of injury, he's going to play. He is one of the most important defenders and players for Arsenal. I think last season he was easily top 3 for the Gunners. Even the year before that, very solid for the most part. Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned. I think Gabriel is worth the extra millions over Timber, Calafiori. I think he's also a better option than Ben White right now, who might not even start today against Leicester. So I don't think that's a big concern. So plot twist, Raya in the hotel to take rest and recover his leg. Yeah, we just don't know for sure, right? But I don't mind going for Raya again. Can I go Robertson instead of Trent? Of course you can. It's not a bad shout. I just prefer Trent. I think he's worth the extra million. And I could see Robertson rotating with Tsimikas in the next couple of weeks, even in the Premier League. Should I go Greaves or Harwood Bellis? Greaves. Ken Back says, hi Dylan, on the wildcard options, Diaz, Trent, Smith-Rowe or Palmer, Robertson and Rodgers. We're talking about very fine margins here, but I'd probably lean towards Diaz, Trent and Smith-Rowe, which is what I've gone for. Welcome Europa 1. Hi mate, like that team you've picked. What do you think about having Timber? Got him in, but thinking of moving him on. I think it's worth spending extra millions on Raya if he's fit, Saliba and Gabriel. I honestly think that. Timber is a quality defender, can play anywhere in the back line, but I could see rotation for him and other Arsenal defenders like Ben White and Calafiori now, so I wouldn't go there. Alexander says, Captain Haaland, Diaz or Bowen? Haaland. Is Saka to Palmer too risky? It makes no sense to sell Saka this week, in my opinion. Palmer's a great player, but I wouldn't sell Saka. No chance. Recosta says, Robertson and Solanke or Trent and Chris Wood? Another great question. A very close duo. I'd probably go for Trent and Chris Wood, but very fine margins here. Do you think that Diego Carlos might start this week, or will it be Bogard? Tricky one, right? I think Diego Carlos starts again, but they might want to do something where one of Bogard or Nedeljkovic starts at right back, and then against Bayern Munich, they bring Diego Carlos in for a more solid defence, and they give him the rest over the weekend. So it's a very tough one, but I think Diego Carlos would be above the pecking order to start instead of Bogard, and Cons is just nailed on. Thank you once again, Aranya. Best non-Arsenal third defender after Trent and Gabriel. Well, I'll list a few that have crossed my mind whilst building this wildcard team. So Mezraoui is pretty good for his price. I also think Mikalenko as a cheap option can come good. I really believe that. Then you've got Bodro, Rico Lewis, Gavardio. I'd probably go for one of those three. So one of Bodro, Gavardio or Rico Lewis. But if you do go for Lewis, try to have decent bench cover, which could include Mikalenko, but just ensure you've got that coverage on the bench. So I'll probably go for Rico Lewis in this instance as your third defender, which is non-Arsenal, so to speak. Bowen or Maddison? Bowen for me. Also, is there anything remotely wrong with going for Flecken over Raya with Fabianski as backup if it can let me get Palmer and Havertz over Saka and Jackson? Not necessarily. I don't mind that. I do prefer Saka over Palmer, but then you've got Havertz and Jackson. You'd probably edge towards Havertz there. Very close in terms of the duos. There's really nothing separating them. I personally favour Saka and Jackson, but that's just me. As for going for Fabianski instead of Valdimarsson as backup, that's fine. I mean, I just go for Valdimarsson because if Flecken were to miss out, you've got Valdimarsson in as a 4 million starting goalkeeper, so that just makes sense. But yeah, Bowen for me would be the answer to the first question, and I don't think there's anything wrong with what you say afterwards, but I just have my own reasoning for what I've gone for. Start Van Heck or Mazraoui? I don't see any keeping a clean sheet, but probably Mazraoui in this case. Roy says, any suggestions? So Ederson in goal, Saliba, Trent, Munoz, Robinson, Rogers, Saka, Jota, Haaland, Watkins. Yeah, Jota isn't guaranteed to start this weekend. He scored a brace against West Ham, but I'm really not sure about his minutes. Ederson could be a shout with Raya injured, potentially. If that's the case, we'll give you updates within the next hour or so on that. Not a big fan of Munoz, despite the clean sheet against United last week. Robinson is sellable. I think the rest is really good. You've got a strong squad, but I think I'd mark Jota, Munoz, and Robinson as potential concerns. And you might want to find more value in your goalkeeper by going for a Flecken or another 4-point family and goalkeeper like Robert Sanchez instead of Ederson. Now, if Raya is fit, I'd highly encourage you to buy him for Ederson, but I'm guessing that's a non-wildcard team by the looks of it. Thank you, Safir. Likewise to you. I wish you all the best. Do you think Bernardo will start because Pep likes to rotate his team a lot every time? I think Bernardo will start, but he's not a guaranteed, week in, week out, he's not going to play in the Premier League. So I wouldn't go there in FPL. Lewis or Pedro Porro? Lewis this week. Keen for Everton cover? No. Like I mentioned earlier, Branthwaite is close to a return. Once that happens, Keane will drop out. So that's really a transfer waiting to happen. I know he's only 4 million, but I wouldn't go for Keane. It's worth going for Mikolenko instead. If you can't make that work now, then maybe wait a little bit longer to get the extra millions necessary. I'm tempted to captain Salah over Haaland. I'd do it. If I had Salah and I'm still trying to find a way to bring him back in, I'd honestly buy Salah. Double Arsenal defence or Saka and Havertz? I just think long-term double Arsenal defence is the best call. For the next 3 game weeks, I think Saka and Havertz looks really good. But I'm kind of looking beyond that with this sort of pick with my Arsenal structure. And that's why I think Ryan Gabriel is ideal. And if not, you're looking at Gabriel and Saliba. Does it make sense to bench boost next week if you have Flecken and Valdimarsson? I'm not sure what the rest of your bench is. That's what ultimately determines it. But I think you could form a stronger bench, possibly, in the future. Thorsten Hermansen, Leicester have great fixtures after this week and could be a good differential. Yeah, he's made some good saves this season. He's not a bad goalkeeper. Like you say, the fixtures are turning for the better, but I'm not really backing Leicester to keep many clean sheets. I know at 4.5 you can't ask for too much, but I'd rather go for other goalkeepers like Sanchez, Flecken, Onana at 5 million. I wouldn't go for Hermansen personally. If you wanted to go for a Leicester defender, Wout Faster or Colley could be decent. Trossard isn't suspended for this game because he served that 1-game ban against Bolton Wanderers in the Carabao Cup. He is available against Leicester City. Haaland, Havertz, Watkins or double Arsenal defence? It's a close one. I mean, if you still got an Arsenal defender with the first trio, I'd go for that. Haaland, Havertz and Watkins. Play Dunk or Munoz? Probably Munoz here. Better fixture, better chance of a clean sheet, and as you say, more attacking potential. I think Havertz is better than Chris Wood in isolation, but there's also a big difference in price, and you can do a lot with that money. That includes getting a second Arsenal defender or Raya in goal, should he be fit. Xerxes obviously had a great start in matchday 1, scoring that winning goal, but he's missed some big chances ever since in pretty much every single game. Now, he's getting used to the league, and we have to give him time, but I'm not a big fan of him in FPL. I'd rather go for Garnacho if he can nail down a spot in that United team. This isn't my final team, so to speak, because I could make changes. If Raya is confirmed to be available, I'll probably buy him back in for Flecken and just readjust accordingly. Should I start Collins or Colwell this week? Probably Collins, actually. Yeah, no Chelsea player. Their fixtures turn very soon for the worse. I also don't like their prospects that much against Chelsea and Nottingham Forest in the next 2. I think they'll probably get 1 win out of the 2 matches, possibly even 4 points. But yeah, Palmer is always a great option, but I'd rather go for Saka right now. not to mention Mohamed Salah. Then you've got Jackson up front. I think Solanke and Havertz are better. Then you've got these kind of cheaper options like Chris Wood and Calvert-Lewin with better fixtures, which allows you to then go for Diaz and Saka with maybe an Arsenal defender or two and Trent. So that's pretty much why. Thank you, Craig. Massively appreciate as always. And let's see how we're doing right now in terms of the likes. Like I said, we are going to give 5 memberships. So we have hit 100 likes now. So I'm going to give 5 memberships finally after my 4th attempt. In the other 3 streams, it just didn't work. I'm not picking who gets it, by the way. I think YouTube, I did some research and apparently YouTube do gift it based on how, you know, how engaged they are with the chat. That doesn't mean spamming, by the way, so don't try it, as Obi-Wan Kenobi says. But yeah, going to see who gets gifted it now. So congratulations to Tommy Raw, Callum Jr., Safir, Adnan, and also to Gunner24 for being gifted a membership for an entire month. That means you can gain early access to my videos amongst many other perks. And towards the end, once we get to 200 likes and beyond, I'll be gifting 5 more memberships. And then this time next month, I'll be gifting 10 more memberships. And it'll be a regular thing on this channel. And it has been for a while now, actually. No worries, Affair. Enjoy the channel membership. Will Foden start or get decent minutes? I believe so. I think he will. Cole Palmer or Nicholas Jackson? Well, I prefer Palmer, but budget plays a big part in this sort of question. If you go for Palmer, which striker do you go for instead of Jackson, and vice versa? Which midfielder can you get if you go for Nicholas Jackson instead of Palmer? So, on the face of it, I'd rather go for Palmer, but there might be more to it than that. Aina or Milenkovic? A lot of Forest fans I've seen do recommend Milenkovic because of his aerial presence, and with Aina, he can play on both flanks, but I also think he's a bit less nailed than Milenkovic. Also, in terms of goal contributions, I think the Serbian will probably get more goals this season and probably goal contributions overall. Anyone having problems with the app not showing accurate prices of players? Only shows the first price move on players for me. If you're talking about the transfer section on the FPL website, that's probably the selling price you've got, which is different to the overall value of a player. So let's say, for example, you buy Salah at 12.5 million. And so he goes up to 12.6 million. His selling value will still be 12.5 because in order for selling value to go up by 0.1 million, you need the overall value to go up by 0.2. So that's probably the reason why you're seeing so-called inaccurate prices on the FPL website. Trent or Saliba? I'd go for Trent. Player of the Year Foden, what's going on with him this year? When is the right moment to take him back? Well, I think the Euros had a big impact on him. He had a pretty poor tournament overall, and I'm not sure. There might have been something behind the scenes, to be fair, but yeah, something doesn't seem quite right with him, but you can't really discount that level of player. He'll probably score a few goals very soon, and that run for City from 7 onwards is a great time for him to do that, if he gets the minutes, which I'm sure he will. So it's a slow start, but I think Foden will recover very well. I just don't see him winning the Player of the Year award this year, that's for sure. It would take something special for him to do that. No worries, Tommy Raw, enjoy it. Captain Luis Diaz, I can think of much worse. Now, I personally would rank Salah, Haaland, Saka, Watkins even higher than Luis Diaz, but apart from that, you aren't really looking at many who would be above Diaz in the current pecking order. Not sure about Isak starting, it's a big doubt there, to be honest. Wait for Raya or pick Neto and gain more rank? I'd probably wait for Raya. If you are in a position with 2 or 3 transfers available, you could do something like that. But I just don't like making goalkeeper transfers if I can help it. But as I mentioned earlier, there are rumours that Raya was spotted with the team in the hotel. So that does contradict the report I showed you earlier from yesterday night where he wasn't spotted. So if he is with the team right now, there is a chance that he will play. And if that's the case, I think he's the best option in goal. But we don't know for sure yet. Haaland, Diaz, Saka or Palmer captain? Haaland. Yeah, and Dyer's a good option, yeah. I liked him a lot against Leicester. Very, very lively, even before his goal. Constantly demanding the ball, making things happen. A bit selfish at times, but I do like the look of him. Sonny. once again, I've been asked about him a lot in recent weeks, and I've always said this. He's still a good option, but I just don't think he's on the same level as Palmer and Saka, with the fixtures in mind as well, in the case of Saka. So, still a good option. If you got him, you can definitely keep, but I probably would look elsewhere if you're building a wildcard team. Rodgers or Smith-Rowe? I've currently gone for Emil Smith-Rowe. Who would you start over Mikalenko and Einar, says Purpose Driven. I think this might be Everton's week. Well, I've currently got Lewis above Mikalenko in the pecking order on my bench, but originally I had Mikalenko above him. I'd start Liverpool and Arsenal defenders over Mikalenko, and maybe Konsa, these Aston Villa defenders, who I normally don't trust, but I probably would do something like that. Thank you, Aranyo, once again. Massively appreciated, mate. How's Akanji as a City defender? Is he nailed on to start? How likely is Lewis coming off the bench? Can't afford Gavardio and don't want to risk Lewis getting 1 pointers too much when I start him. Some very good questions, and I think it's worth making those points. Akanji is one of those defenders that isn't really talked about in FPL, but he seems to get a lot of starts for Man City. Not week in, week out, not nailed on. I don't think he is, but he could easily get 28 plus league starts, possibly close to 30 to 35, and that would be great for a Man City defender. He's also versatile. He can play as a right back and in central defence. So Akanji is a very good utility player for Man City, but I don't think he's nailed on to start, to be quite honest with you. I think Gavardio would be the closest to that. Then you're looking at Akanji possibly as second in that sort of pecking order for the most nailed on City defenders. How likely is Lewis to get 1 pointers? I don't think it'll happen often this season, but I think there'll be a few occasions where he's on the bench and then comes on for a 1 pointer, which is far from ideal for FPL managers who start him in that particular game week. So, yeah, no matter who you go for Man City, you're going to get rotation, really. That's why some people go for Edison every single year, because in theory, it's the position with least rotation. Erling Haaland's the only one you can really rely on to start week in, week out. So you're going to get pain, I think, no matter who you go for. I'd rather go for Lewis because he's cheaper, and I also think he's not going to get many 1 pointers off the bench. But if Man City are in a position where they're losing a game and Lewis is on the bench, he could be one of those impact subs to change the structure and also the game in their favour. So it's a tricky one, I think, Aranya. You make some great questions, but ultimately, is Akanji nailed on? No, but he's going to get more starts than most in that City defence. And Lewis will get a few 1 pointers off the bench, but not as often as I think you'd probably believe based on your statement. Thank you very much for the questions. Who is the best 5.6 million striker? Tricky one, because I think Welbeck's 5.7, Vardy as well, I believe is also just above that price threshold. Bit of a tricky one, actually. Yeah, probably Raul Jimenez we're talking about, or Ndai would be another one. I think Ndai would be a really good shout. I'm going to stick with him, actually, with Raul Jimenez second. Hi, Dylan, start Mazraoui or Robinson? I'd go for Robinson. Haaland, Saka, Palmer captain? Haaland. Adnan puts his team. So Verbruggen, Robinson, Kanate, Borro, Salah, Mbumo, Eze, Rogers, Semenyo, Haaland, Watkins, Dunk, Nedeljkovic, Joao Pedro. Should I take a -4 to bring in Gabriel for Borro? That's a good question, because I do like Gabriel in the long term, and I do think he pays off that hit, even for a Borro, but very, very tricky one. It's close. I'd probably do it. I think I would. Who should I captain, Salah or Palmer? Salah. So yeah, if you see any updates on Raya, let me know. As I mentioned before, what I've currently seen is that last night he wasn't with the Arsenal squad in the hotel, but he was spotted today, apparently. So yeah, I haven't been able to verify it myself completely, but I'm still having a look for that information. Morning to you as well, Twisted Parky. Semenyo or Rogers? Semenyo for the next two. But with Semenyo, try to ensure that you've got decent coverage on your bench when he faces the likes of City in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, Haaland could go up in price tonight, which is ridiculous, to be honest, but his ownership has essentially doubled, really, since pre-season. It's now at 70% and above. Let's not even talk about Solanke and the fact he seems to be just protected in terms of his price. Hi Dylan, is it worth taking a -8 hit and save my wildcard for Game Week 8 after the international break? Minter to Mbumo, Watkins to Wood. Not sure I take the -8 hit simply because you're selling Watkins against Ipswich. I know it allows you to get Mbeumo, which is great, but I wouldn't sell Watkins for a -8 this week. So I'd rather wildcard or stick with what you have for now. Maybe do Minter to another budget midfielder like Semenyo, but it does mean another week without Mbeumo, facing a West Ham side who conceded 3 to Chelsea and 5 to Liverpool in the last 2 matches. Wasing says, the reason why I'm saying that is because I want to get an Arsenal defender. I have to take a few weeks to fix the team and free up the funds. By that time, Arsenal's fixtures turn difficult. You're right, but it is a free game period where Arsenal have tough games. Then I'd say they've got a great run until April. That's the way I look at it. Of course, there will be some tough games in there, but it's kind of sprinkled in between. Yeah, you make a good question there, but ultimately, I think, yeah, you're right to focus on the attacker as a short-term sort of solution. I really don't mind that, to be honest. I just think for those on the wildcard right now, I think it makes sense to look longer term and go for the double Arsenal defense, but I think what you're saying is absolutely fine. Why are people going for Dunk? Well, I had him already, and that was really for a 2-game period. He got me 1 clean sheet, which I'm happy for, but yeah, I'm not sure why people would go for Dunk now. He's got a bit of goal threat. Brighton are decent defensively this season, but with those fixtures, I can't really advocate for Lewis Dunk at the moment. Would you play Iwobi or Maddison? Probably Maddison, but it's a very close call. Hey Dylan, start Elanga or Nkuku? I mean, do either start, especially Nkuku. I'd probably go for Nkuku. You're really hoping for a cameo off the bench and a goal, and that's really what you're hoping for. Eze, Smith Rowe, and Wood, pick any 2. I would go for Eze and Chris Wood. Yeah, Raya saw seen at the hotel. Yeah, that's what I've been seeing at the moment. Let's actually go into this because I might make a transfer here. Start DCL or Rodgers. I'd go for Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, so Mankoba, I have answered that question. I wouldn't take the -8. Best Palmer replacement, Saka. You don't need to sell Palmer this week, though. What order would you put Smith Rowe, Rodgers, and Semenyo? Probably Semenyo first, Smith Rowe second, Rodgers third, but we're talking about very fine margins. Yeah, you can go without Mbeumo this week. It's not ideal, but you can do that. Are Palmer and Saka classed as differential captains? Technically, considering Haaland's effective ownership and the way FPL seems to be going, which is Erling Haaland dependence. If so, is it really bad to captain one with such a good fixture? Only problem is the Wolves game could be a goal fest. Yeah, I personally would favour Salah over Palmer and Saka this week for the captaincy, but I think longer term, especially on the wild card, it makes sense to go for a so-called cheaper option in Saka instead of Salah. This team isn't locked in, as mentioned earlier. Any early team news? We are getting conflicting reports about Raya. So last night he wasn't with the Arsenal squad in the hotel, and this morning he has been pictured. So let's wait and see. Twister Parky says, I have a big question coming. Yeah, don't worry. You can just put your question here now and I can answer it. No worries, mate. Around which game week this year will be international break again? Game week 8. Literally just in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, we also got one in November. Then kind of a long break until March. But we've got a few international breaks to wrap up the year. Do you think Timber will start having attacking returns at some point? A few, but not many. Nowhere near as many as Gabriel, for example. Solanke a good option? Yep, I think so. If you are going for that sort of structure with a mid-price forward, I'd go for Solanke. You could even be clever about it and go for Havertz for a free game week period and then switch to Solanke in game week 8. Or game week 9, technically. Do you think Jota starts? Not sure about that. There is a chance he starts. He was in some predicted lineups I've seen, but yeah, I'd probably start with him Madueke because off the bench he can do something. I'm not a big fan of Jota. Who's the best 4-point family defender? Aina would be decent. Also Milenkovic, so basically a Nottingham Forest defender is decent. Lisandro Martinez, Mikolenko. Those would be some of my favourite options, I think. If you could include a 4.6 option, I'd say Mazraoui is my absolute favourite, but it's all dependent on that. If wildcarding, do I keep Salah? Well, the reason why I haven't gone for Salah right now on my wildcard is because of the balance in my team. If I could find a way to have my double Arsenal defense with Saka and Haaland whilst keeping Salah, I'd do it. And I think there is a way, but it'd make my bench extremely weak and possibly give me a kind of subpar 11th option in my 11, which isn't ideal. As for the Saliba over Gabriel question earlier, I just think Gabriel's a better FPL asset right now. There isn't a lot separating them overall, I think, and you could argue Gabriel's been getting the goals recently. It's now Saliba's time to do that, but over the course of the campaign, I don't think Saliba will get as many goals as Gabriel. It's as simple as that. Who is the best replacement for Dunk, and would you take a -4 to remove him? So yeah, that kind of, I just answered that with a 4-point family and defenders just now. I wouldn't take a -4 hit though. Best 4-point family and defender alongside Trent and Gabriel, I have Lewis. Yeah, one of Aina or Milenkovic would be decent. You could even consider Lisandro Martinez or Mikalenko, but yeah, at 4.5 specifically, I'd probably say Aina or Milenkovic. Best keeper options on the wildcard. Raya, if he's fit, is by far the best. Otherwise, looking at one of one of Flecken or Onana. Do you think Arteta starting Calafiori over White in the previous game is a right call? Well, White had a small injury problem, and last season he played through a lot of injuries. So I think it was the right call. I mean, Calafiori struggled a little bit against Savio, to be fair, especially on the ground. He won a lot of aerial duels, and I think on the ball he was quite composed, scored a great goal. And against Bolton he had one little mistake, but afterwards he recovered very well. And yeah, I think Calafiori is a great signing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad call or the right one. I think it was a decent call. Ultimately, with White's fitness, I think it was probably the right one, yeah. Would you do Flecken as a backup just in case Raya doesn't start? I was thinking about that myself, going for Raya and Flecken. And I think in certain cases I was able to get 0-point family in the bank. But you might end up wanting to free up funds in that goalkeeper position by making a transfer later down the line. That isn't really what you want to see. Joao Pedro, I don't think he is locked. I saw something the other day where he wasn't locked, but I'm not sure if that happened before the red flag occurred or not. He probably is locked now, but he wasn't a couple of days ago, and it took quite a while for that red flag to appear. I'm not going triple Arsenal. Is that a worry? You can't cover them all, right? So if you got two, that's absolutely fine. Saliba over Porro? Yep. Solanke versus Havertz, who would you pick? Havertz for a free gaming period. I think longer term, I'd go for Solanke. So, like I mentioned earlier, you can be a bit clever about it. Go for Havertz until Game Week 8. Then in 9, you can buy Solanke. But Spurs do have Man City in Game Week 12. Like, it's not a perfect way of dealing with this. Ultimately, if I had to pick one right now on the wildcard, I'd probably go for Solanke and go for the longer term option. So, that's probably my final answer. So, yeah, okay, all good with that. Okay, so we've got just over half an hour left until the deadline. I'm going to start making a few modifications to this team with the assumption that Raya is back. ¿Cuáles son los 5 centrocampistas más destacados a seguir en esta jornada? En esta jornada solamente sería Salah. Bueno, Saka y Palmer son muy buenos, pero tener los tres al mismo tiempo es imposible. Pero sí, yo diría Salah, Saka, Palmer, Mbumo y Semenyo. Do you think Watkins is a long-term hold? Yep. But looking at keeping Salah 1 more week, says Twisted Parky. So plan 1, Henderson, Valdimarsson, Dunk, Barco, Robinson, Trent, Gvardiol, Rogers, Salah, Mbumo, Smith Rowe, Jota, Haaland, Pedro, Wood. 2 free transfers, Gabriel and Greaves for Robinson and Dunk, or Gabs in and Saka for Salah. I'd probably go for the Gabriel and Greaves option. You can always buy Saka for Salah in Game Week 7 or 8. But then again, if you buy him in 8, you've got Bournemouth away and then 3 really tough games for Arsenal. So yeah, that's a tricky one, but I'd rather go for Gabriel and Greaves there, Twisted Parky. Is Havertz worth even playing in the midfield? Well, there is a chance he plays up front. We could see Trossard in the midfield instead, or, I mean, to be fair, in certain games recently against City and Spurs, Arsenal technically play with 2 forwards, so Trossard and Havertz together. So a bit of a different shape. But yeah, I think Havertz as a midfielder is nowhere near as effective as an FPL option as he would be up front. Saka, Gabriel, Timber, Raya, or Saka, Gabriel, Havertz. Yeah, it'd be Raya. My favourite would be Raya, Gabriel, Saka if Raya's fit. If he isn't, I'd go for the Saka, Gabriel, Havertz option and not Timber. I could see the Dutchman being rotated. Like how you can only pick a Nana in goal in FPL Challenge. Yeah, no, but I actually think in FPL he's a decent choice. Not for the next two, in terms of clean sheet odds, but I think longer term he's decent. Yeah, Konate's fine. It's just, I do have concerns about him starting week in, week out. But there is actually possibly a way for me to have Salah and Saka by downgrading Trent to Konate. And if I can make that work, I might end up doing it, but it is a massive downgrade to go from Trent to Konate. I'm not going to deny that. Who would you bench, Davis or Lewis? I would probably bench Davis. Very close call, though. I'd captain Salah this week, Nasser. Ryan Tate says, hi, Dylan. On my wildcard this week, currently have Fleckin and 1.4 million in the bank, but tempted by the upgrade to Edison. I can see why. I mean, the fixtures are excellent from Game Week 7 onwards, but I would probably say no. I'd rather go for Rico Lewis, who is riskier, but he's cheaper, and Edison is a bit of an FPL troll, in my opinion. Captain Saka or Haaland, I'd go for Haaland. Barnes, Semenyo, Smith Rowe, Rodgers, pick 2 for the rest of the season. I don't think you need to be quite honest with you. You've got a second wildcard in the second half of the campaign. For now, on a Game Week 6 wildcard, I'm going for Semenyo and Smith Rowe. I think Barnes will be at the bottom of that list, but he's someone I've got my eye on when Newcastle's fixtures turn for the better. I'd captain Haaland from those players, Alexander. Start Mazraoui or Robinson. Robinson, I believe I answered your question earlier, though. I'm not going to lie. Depending on the games this week, Raul or Welbeck. Both of their fixtures aren't great, but I'd argue Fulham's are better. In this case, I'd probably go for... I'm actually still going to go for Welbeck. I just think he's been very consistent so far this season. Ashley says, hello, mate. Bought Wood, Solanke and Gabriel for Pedro, Isak and Gvardiol. Yeah, I like those transfers. I really do. Now, Gvardiol is still decent, but I think Gabriel's an upgrade, so I really like those transfers. Start Mikolenko or Aina this week. Probably Mikolenko. All right, let's call this a day in terms of questions, at least for now. Let's actually make some modifications to this team. So, if Raya is available, I'd probably go for something like this. So, Raya there. Let's also get rid of Saliba and make some changes. So then I could get Mazraoui or a 4 million defender. I still think it's probably too much squad depth, right? And like I mentioned earlier very briefly, if I could make something like this work, so let's put Konate. Would it be Konate? Not sure if this would actually be feasible. Let's put Mazraoui for Greaves. I'd have 3 million in the bank. Yeah, no, I'd still be a bit short of doing what I was talking about. It would probably require a downgrade in my forward line as well. So if I were to go for Salah at 2, then I'd downgrade Calvert-Lewin to Ross Stewart. I'd still be a little bit short. By 0.4 to be fair, not that bad. Yeah, I mean, I could do something like that. And then instead of Konate, I could go for Mazraoui. But as you can see, this is the problem with having Salah. If you also want to keep a Saka or Palmer alongside Haaland, it's going to be very difficult. Now, you could just argue, well, maybe you're spending too much money on your goalkeeper, which is absolutely fine. But let me know in the live chat what you think of these moves. Would you do it in order to buy Salah or keep Salah on the wild card? Just say yes or no in the live chat. I'd be very interested to see your thoughts. But I do think in terms of balance, it is worse. I'd also be forced to play Smith Rowe and Semenyo in pretty much every single game week unless I shift to a back 4 and start Mazraoui or Rico Lewis. So this week it would be Raya, Gabriel, Mikolenko and Rico Lewis, I believe. The 5 midfielders with Haaland and Chris Wood up front. But I have to say, I do think the overall 50-man squad is worse, although you could argue it's arguably too strong in the first place. I don't want to have that much squad depth where I've got benching dilemmas every single week, but it does seem like I'm headed in that direction. Thank you, Biedny. Thank you very much. Do I start Rodgers or not? I don't know, because I don't know the context of your team, so it's difficult for me to say. On the face of it, Rodgers against Ipswich is a good fixture. I like him, but if you've got Chris Wood, Calvert-Lewin starting ahead of him, I'm not really going to disagree. Solanke or Jackson? This week, Jackson, but overall, I prefer Solanke because of Spurs' fixtures. Welcome, Sandeep. Osama says Raya and Bodro or Flecken and Saliba. Close one. I'd probably go for Raya and Bodro, assuming that Raya is fit. Yeah, that's true. So Wolves do have quite a few ill... Yeah, I think a few players are ill in the camp, so that's a big blow. That could also add to the Salah captaincy debate and even Luis Diaz. So you are right to point that out. That is also very concerning for Wolves fans. Tommy Raw says, hi Dylan, my squad is Flecken, Valdimarsson, Gabriel, Gavadio, Robinson, Harwood Bellis, Barco, Salah, Saka, Mbeumo, Rogers, Winks, Haaland, DCL, Wood. Should I wildcard this team as I've already taken a -8 hit? It is a good squad, but the -8 hit does seem, well, it's not ideal in a week where a lot of people are wildcarding or making normal transfers. So this week you'd go for Flecken, Gabriel. Yeah, you'd go for Gavadio and Robinson, I guess. You don't really have any other options there. The midfield is pretty strong, actually. Salah, Saka, Mbeumo, Rogers, Haaland, DCL, Wood. I probably wouldn't wildcard, actually, but a -8, yeah, whilst not being ideal, it does allow you to keep Salah, and you're almost matching the wildcard teams, essentially. I think your defensive line is where you might be a bit weaker, and that could include the goalkeeper if Wright ends up being fit, but yeah, I think I just keep things as they are for now. Mbeumo's captain, very, very reasonable. He's not in my top 5, but he's been in excellent form. Facing West Ham have been awful. I think that's a great shout, actually. Captain Palmer or Salah, says Fabio. Salah for me. Why Saliba, not Robertson? Arsenal's fixtures for the next 3 are excellent. They've got a tough period between 9 and 11, but then they've got a fantastic run until April, whilst Liverpool's fixtures turn for the worse very soon. Robertson is also a rotation risk with Tsimikas, in my opinion. Maybe not that big of a risk, but I could see him being benched from time to time, and for that price, it's not worth it. So I'd rather have Saliba over Robertson all day. Duran ahead of Wood? No, not for me. Until Duran actually nails down a spot in that 11, I'm not going to go there. Solanke, Saliba and Van den Berg, or Watkins, Mikalenko and Aina? That is very close. I'd probably go for Solanke, Saliba and Van den Berg, but wow, that is a really, really close one. Okay, so let's see what you lot are saying about the moves I was talking about. Thank you, by the way, to Levi. Is that Attack on Titan, Levi? Let me know. Thank you for the super chat. If you've got a question, let me know and I can read it out. You don't need to send another one. Yeah, I don't think Isaac starting. I have covered this earlier. No worries, Osama. So yeah, let me know in the live chat what you think of that. Hey Dylan, only Raya news I've seen. Yeah, that's exactly what I've seen as well, but I'm not entirely sure. Nuclear Atoms. So any team leaks, Raya was spotted with the squad today in the morning, but yeah, we're going to get a lot of conflicting reports, it seems. Is Raya playing? I mean, it's so difficult to tell. At the moment, I'd say yes, but it's still not... I'm not certain enough to completely settle on Raya as my pick, but let's wait and see. Who should I start, Robinson or Aina? Probably Aina in this fixture. So the Wolves' illnesses, like I mentioned, there's not really much more to talk about it. We don't know which players are affected, but it seems like quite a few are ill, which is a big blow for Wolves ahead of their clash against Liverpool. Jota could start, but I'm not entirely sure about it. I'm quite happy to get rid. What's your prediction for the United Spurs game? Wow, that's a close one. I'm kind of torn between a narrow United win and a draw, so 2-1 or 2-2. I'll get back to you on that, especially towards the end with my predictions, but right now, I'd probably lean towards a 2-2. Which two of these three, Rogers, Wood, and Calvert-Lewin? I'd start Calvert-Lewin and Wood. Start Solanke or Calvert-Lewin? I would start Calvert-Lewin. I made my transfers last Sunday. Jackson, Eze, and Lewis out for DCL, Mbeumo, and Gabriel. Oh, you got rid of Lewis. Interesting. But yeah, going to Gabriel, that's an upgrade. Yeah, good transfers overall. Yeah, Salah captain. If I had him, I would be captaining him. I said this all season, to be fair, in a lot of the game weeks, except for when Haaland played Ipswich. But Yeah, when I have captain Salah in the last two, he has been a massive disappointment. Both Havertz and DCL have been real FPL trolls for me in the past, and I'm dreading having either of them in my 11, especially on a wildcard. Yeah, I think that always plays a part, past biases, experiences with a player. I had that with Foden in FPL before last season. He was good for me in UCL Fantasy, not so much in FPL, so I can relate to that. Pick two amongst those three. Yeah, I'd say Solanke and probably DCL. I think long-term, that's probably your best call. ESR Rodgers, I've currently gone Smith Rowe, but for this week, if we're talking about this week, I'd go for Rodgers. Which one should I do? A captain, Haaland or Salah? I think both are absolutely fine, but I'd go for Salah. Jota worth starting against Madueke? Yeah, as I mentioned before, Wasting, I did answer your question. The answer would be yes. Thoughts on Havertz? Still a good option, but not as appealing with Odegaard injured. He could play in the midfield or this kind of two-striker formation with Trossard, but I think that's mainly for the away games in matches where Arsenal aren't expected to have as much possession and they need a very solid defensive shape. I don't think they'll play that sort of way against Leicester or Southampton coming up. Yeah, I do play challenge, but I haven't made a team for this week. I might make one once the deadline passes, but my full focus right now is on the wild card, which I want to get right, which is going to be tough. Saka or Haaland captain? Haaland, but yeah, I'm still getting Salah, Haaland questions, and I did say Salah as well. So hopefully that's very clear. Do you think I should start Evanilson or Smith Rowe? Evanilson does have a great fixture. I mean, if he doesn't score here in the next two, when will he score? I'm actually going to go for Evanilson this week, but Smith Rowe is a very difficult player to bench. Yeah, Savio, look, the main issue with him is, will he start every single game? No, he won't. Rotation will be an issue, but he was impressive against Arsenal. He's probably Man City's best player for me. The one who looks dangerous in every single phase of play. I didn't get that impression with any other City player. What's the right time to play the wild card? It's team dependent, mate. Honestly, the right time for some people might be Game Week 6. That's why it's proven to be popular for a lot of people. But for others, it might be Game Week 11 or 12. Like, it's difficult for me to say without the context of your team. Yeah, Anthony, good squad. There might be some issues there, like Jota in the long term. I think he's a sell. Konsa, not the most reliable with clean sheets, but overall, very good team. No Arsenal defense might be a concern, but you got the double Arsenal defense. Sorry, attack. Yeah, that looks fairly strong. Of course, it's not perfect, but I think it's a very strong squad. Start Robinson or Lewis? I would go for Lewis. Yeah, there is a chance Raya plays. He was spotted with a team in the hotel. That's the reports we're getting, but haven't been able to see from other reliable sources just yet. Yeah, Easy99, you have asked this question a lot. I've highlighted it and answered it briefly. I don't know exactly the issue, so all I know is that several key players or several players are ill, but I don't know which players these are. So yeah, I think it's a reliable source. Let's wait and see. Some of these players who were ill might still start, but it's obviously not what you want to hear as a Wolves fan. Savio or Jota? At this moment, I'd say Savio. For this week, you'd probably go Jota against Wolves. If he starts, he's got a great chance of hauling, but longer term, I'd rather have Savio. Triple captain Salah or wait? I'd probably wait. Yeah, I'm not sure, Jeffrey. I'm not sure. I mean, Lewis, is he a trap? Possibly. I mean, you're not going to find me disagreeing there because I've said this all along. He's not going to start week in, week out. You need the defensive depth to really cover for him. With Raya, I mean, based on the news that came out earlier, it does seem like he will play, but it's not an absolute guarantee. William Pritchard says Havertz or Saka. I mean, I personally prefer Saka, but with what you're saying, you can upgrade other spots, which is crucial. That extra 2 million goes a long way. So in that scenario, I mean, you probably just go for Havertz, right? Because it improves the rest of your 15-man squad, which is the most important. I'd probably keep Son. A -4 to Saka wouldn't really be that bad, though. I don't think so. Same with Palmer. But if you were to make a -4 hit, I think the only midfielders you'd really do that for are Salah and Saka. However, team close to the template wildcard squad, when do you reckon would be the best time for me to wildcard roughly? tricky one. You'd probably be looking at game weeks 9 to 11. I think either game week 11 or 9 would be a good time for you based on fixture swing. So Arsenal do have a kind of tough period for 3 game weeks between 9 and 11, but you still probably want to have 2 or 3 in the long term. So it's kind of a tricky one. But you could definitely wait until after the international break in that case. Matt says non-wildcard and had an awful season so far. So thoughts on the team? I think it's very strong, especially for this week. Of course, with Raya, if he's fit, you're in a good position there by having him in your team. Yeah, Saka, Salah, Rodgers, and Bumo. You start all of them with Haaland, Havertz up front. In the defense, you'd go for Robinson, Pau Torres, possibly Greaves here, but you might want to go for Mazraoui. Yeah, ideally you'd make a transfer with Pedro, sell him to a Calvert-Lewin, Chris Wood. If you don't have the funds though, you might be forced to go in for a Vardy, possibly Ndai or Raul Jimenez. But I think it's still pretty decent. So yeah, Raya Hotel video now leaked. Thank you for letting me know, Nuclear Ams. Always appreciated. Yeah, I was on his page earlier because he was the one, talking about all this. So yeah, Raya. Yeah, and he does make it very clear this doesn't mean he's playing or starting. Yeah. I think he'll play, to be honest. It's such a difficult one. It really is. Yeah, I just saw the video now. Very, very interesting one. So thank you, Nuclear Arms, for pointing it out. I personally think he starts. I mean, look, you can't judge too much from a video. There is a chance he's on the bench and kind of rested, so to speak, but I personally think Raya will play. So time to make some modifications to my squad. So yeah, Salah, oh my God. I mean, this looks pretty strong in the midfield, but the forward line a little bit weak. The defense also takes a hit with no Trent. That's the problem with going for Salah. I think I'm going to stick with Diaz here. So we'll stick with Diaz. We'll also stick with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, look, I've got 2.5 million here in the bank, so I could actually find a way to go for a Solanke instead of Calvert-Lewin or Chris Wood. But I would be 0.4 million short. So some tough decisions to make here on the wild card. I'll try to lock in fairly soon. No leaks on City so far, Jana. I don't think so anyway. I would start Calvert-Lewin over Rodgers this week, but it's a close call. Yeah, thank you, Phobia, as well. Yeah, that's the video I saw. This isn't my final team. It's definitely viable, or it's prone to changes, I'd say. I think I'd probably make a few changes. What I showed before was a way I could get to Salah, but it does mean selling Trent and downgrading my third forward. Who should I start, Lewis or Mikalenko? I'd personally go for Lewis, but he's not a guaranteed starter, so bear that in mind when making your final decision. Bought Raya at 5.5 and switched to Flecken. Yeah, that's not ideal, Duarte, but if you're confident Raya starts, I'd bring him back in. I think he's a massive upgrade on Flecken. Now, you can go for Saliba and Flecken at the same time. You can't have a perfect team, ultimately. Raya will be on the bench. I'm guessing that says, or on the beach. I mean, who knows? My friend, do I start Mikalenko or Robinson? Mikalenko for me. Yeah, Havertz is still a good idea, just not as appealing as before. Taylor says, which one? Lewis and Solanke and Raya and Valdimarsson and Greaves? Or DCL, Borro, Raya, Flecken and Greaves? Or DCL, Borro, Lewis, Raya and Valdimarsson? I'd probably go for the last option on the face of it. I don't think you need to spend that much money on your goalkeepers. So if you go for Raya, just go for a 4 million backup. And if he doesn't start, you're down to 10 men for 1 week, but it is what it is. No City League today in a week where Pep has options in defense and midfield, says Nuclear Atoms. Yeah. No league so far. We'll wait and see if that changes. Yeah, I think Diaz is an upgrade on Jota, but both of them are not the most nailed on players you'll ever see. I'd go for Eze over Madueke, Yassine. Dibbling will make you go for Solanke. Yeah, true. But Dibbling isn't someone I can really rely on. Like for this week, for example, if I were to do something like that and do Smith Rowe or even Rodgers, actually, I could afford Rodgers. But yeah, if I went for Dibbling, I'd probably then start Solanke this week, which I'm not a big fan of. But I could do something like this. Rodgers instead of Smith-Rowe. Yeah, let me know in the live chat if you prefer this to what I said before. I'll try to make a poll about it, but I don't know. I mean, there's probably not enough characters for what I want to really illustrate. So, which combination do you prefer, I guess? Let's see if that works. Smith-Rowe to Rodgers. Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people will be feeling it. It's just I've got a bit of a soft spot for Smith-Rowe. He's been very good for me this season as well. I haven't owned Rodgers all season. FF Scout predicting Rico to start because of his inverted role, while Walker will keep Gordon busy. No, I also think that's spot on. And with Rodgers' injury, I think that opens the door for Lewis to start very often. I'm not sure, Twisted Parky, but I think they had injuries. Yeah, honestly, I have no idea. I mean, maybe Arteta's playing games, you could be right, but I do think they had small problems after that City game. Start Sanchez or sells? Probably sells. Saka for captain this week? Absolutely fine, but I prefer Haaland and Salah, with Salah being my favourite. Hey Dylan, what's your opinion of Solanke versus Jackson? I think Jackson's better for the next 2 game weeks, but longer term, I'd rather go for Solanke. So on the wild card, I'd pick the Spurs forward. So let's see if I can make this point. So let's put DCL. Was it DCL, Smith-Rowe? What else would it be? I'm guessing that would also be Mazraoui. I'm guessing that would be. I think that would be Mazraoui. And then this would be Solanke, Rodgers, and Greaves, because I think everything else is pretty much the same. Yeah, it is. Okay, so it's kind of a trio question then. So which trio do you prefer? Let's see what you lot think. I'll be locking in my team fairly soon. I've got no other option. The site could crash as well. Try to have your app ready on your phone or tablet, a second device, something like that. That could really work. I can imagine what most of you will end up going for. Sells better. I think for this week he is. I don't like Chelsea's fixtures from Game Week 8 onwards anyway. Start Lewis or Mazraoui? Lewis this week. Who to start, DCL or Jackson? Calvert-Lewin. Plan 2, if leaks, wildcard Raya, Valdimarsson, Gabriel, Trent, Gvardiol, Lewis, Greaves, Saka, Mbeumo, Rodgers, Smith-Rowe, Diaz, Haaland, Calvert-Lewin and Wood. Yeah, they're both really good plans and squads. I'd probably go for this one, but my recommendation would be, if you're going for Gvardiol and Lewis, I'd rather get rid of one of them. This could be Mazraoui in for Lewis, or possibly in for Gvardiol, which opens up funds for other positions, which might even help you buy Solanke up front. So actually, it's closer than I expected with this poll. It's 51% in favour of Solanke, Rodgers and Greaves, so very close. Ben White not spotted in the team. Haven't seen anything mentioned about Ben White, but yeah, it does seem strange. He's kind of a locked-in part of that Arsenal team, but yeah, I think Timber and Calafiori could start here. Probably Flecken, but I'm not a big fan of Flecken. Be quite honest with you. Yeah, Palmer's always tempting, but I'd rather have Saka and Salah if we're talking about premium midfielders right now. Postponing the wildcard for 1 more week with 2 free transfers. Would you sell Jota for anyone under 9 million? If Jota starts, he's got a great chance of falling. There's no denying it, but I'd probably go for Mbeumo. Havertz is better for the next 3 game weeks compared to Solanke, but longer term, I'd rather go for the Spurs striker here. Aina or Vardy? Aina. Raya and Gvardiol or Edison and Saliba? Probably Raya and Gvardiol. Jota to Mbeumo or Borro to Gabriel or -4 for both? Borro to Gabriel and sell Jota in Game Week 7. Did I make a mistake keeping Borro? I was thinking if I don't go for Solanke, I'll still have Spurs cover. Well, with Borro, you know what you're going to get. Limited clean sheets, but a lot of attacking potential. That's kind of the bread and butter with him. I don't think it's a mistake, no. I just think there are better options at a similar price, like Saliba, Gabriel, arguably Gvardiol too. Smith-Rowe or Robinson? Smith-Rowe. Yeah, I agree, Batman. I don't think any City player, except Haaland, can be trusted. Start 2, bench 1, Wood, Rodgers, Calvert-Lewin. I'd bench Rodgers here, reluctantly. Savinho starts as Chase. Let me know where you got that from, but I appreciate the update. I don't need to wildcard. Only things I'm really worried about is no Gabriel. I have Raya. No Saka. I have Havertz. And I still have Haaland and Salah. No, yeah, you're in a great position then. I had no Arsenal players going into Game Week 6. That was one of my key reasons for wildcarding, amongst several other problems that I had. Mainly players like Gordon, Jota, even Eze underperforming, Henderson, Dunk, Barco, Joao Pedro. So I had a lot of issues. Some of them you could argue were decent for one more week, like Eze and Jota, but it is what it is. Hi Dylan, I can't afford Saka. I'd probably go for Martinelli out of the two, but yeah, not ideal. Chris Wood or DCL? Chris Wood. Isak out, so Gordon will play centre forward, no? Possibly, but that's not necessarily a good thing. I think Gordon's better on the left. Nah, no chance for me. Savio looks like a really top talent, but comparing him to Neymar now, I think, is a bit silly. If he gets anywhere near Neymar's level, he will be a great player. Captain Salah or Haaland? Salah for me. Bring in Trent or Jackson? I'd rather bring in Trent. I did go for Fleck and Havertz and Lewis at the end. That's absolutely fine. I don't really see any issues with that. DCL, Smith Rowe and Mazraoui is much more balanced. Yeah, it is more balanced, but in the context of my team, I would have a lot of benching dilemmas. Evanilson instead of Semenyo, not for me. I'd rather go for Semenyo. No players had more shots than him this season. Sell Gordon and Isak? Yeah. Especially Isak right now, who's likely to miss out. Start Mazraoui or Keane by Saka or Palmer? I'd start Keane, but there is a chance that Branthwaite comes in straight away, and if that's the case, Keane will drop out. I'd rather buy Saka. Konsa or Lewis? Konsa this week. Watkins or Solanke? Watkins. Robinson or Mazraoui this game week? Robinson. Bench one? I'd bench Borro. Alright, so let's finalise my squad in the wildcard. So 52% have gone for Solanke, Rodgers and Greaves for the wildcard team instead of DCL, Smith Rowe and Mazraoui. I mean, we're talking about very fine margins here. It's very, very close. Yeah, I mean, it's just with Solanke, he would have to be quite consistent to justify the extra million or so over Calvert-Lewin, who has excellent fixtures until Game Week 14. I think with this, I'd have fewer benching headaches, but if I do have Rico Lewis, I probably would need stronger defensive depth. So in this case, let's say Rico Lewis is in my starting 11, he misses out. I've got Mikolenko and Greaves to come in. Not too bad, to be honest. But yeah, I think with the other one, with Mazraoui, I would have a lot of benching headaches. It's honestly a very tough one to call, but I've got exactly enough money for this squad, and I'm fairly happy with it. Now, Raya will still be a risk. There is still a chance he doesn't play today, despite him being spotted with the squad. I'm probably going to take a risk with it because long-term, I think going for Raya is the best course of action for my team. I think with Arsenal, even in the tougher games, just having Raya in place for every single match day is kind of very reasonable. If any team can keep a clean sheet at Anfield, at the Etihad, it would be Arsenal. So I think I'm going to go for something like this. It's now just down to fine details. Rodgers or Smith Rowe? Do I go for Greaves or Mazraoui? Do I go for Solanke or Calvert-Lewin? And I think I might end up just going for this. The starting 11 would be Raya, Gabriel, Trent and Rico Lewis with Saka. I think Rodgers would start for me this week in this case. Semenyo, Mbeumo and Diaz. I would bench Solanke against United, but have him in place for Game Week 7 and beyond. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. And also, do you prefer Chris Wood or Calvert-Lewin, which would be another one? So I'm going to end this poll. Already a lot of you have voted. Thank you very much. Let's get this stream to 200 plus likes. And at the very end, I will be gifting 5 more memberships with 5 already being gifted. I'll get to your super chat now, Aranya, in just a second. And then I'll do my last poll of the day. So yeah, Haaland and Rico Lewis start via FPL Tony. Thank you, Nuclear Arms. That doesn't mean Rico Lewis is safe in the long term, though. I mean, can Spurs keep a clean sheet? Yeah, if United just keep on missing big chances, will they? It's very unlikely for me. I'd rather go for Havertz because Chelsea's fixtures turn for the worse soon. Aranya says 0.1 million short of Rico Lewis plus DCL, Solanke, Rodgers. Gabriel to Saliba to get these 4, or keep Gabriel and downgrade Rodgers. Keane as a backup instead of Mikolenko. I wouldn't go for Keane. Branthwaite is back very soon. That means Keane will drop out of the starting 11, so I wouldn't go there. Rodgers to Dibbling isn't too bad, but I'd rather have Rodgers in the longer term. So I think in your case, it's very, very close, by the way, but I'd probably go for Saliba instead of Gabriel. and go for Rodgers. Don't get me wrong, having Gabriel and Dibbling is absolutely fine, and then having the rest of your options that you really want, but I probably would go for the Saliba option there, Raya. That's what I'd go for. Best of luck to you as well, Callum. Fully locked. Well, at least someone's locked in, because I still technically am not. So, just for context, by the way, this is my team at the moment. So, without making the transfers. But I think I'm going to get Raya in. We've only got a few minutes left until the deadline. I don't want to leave this until the very last minute. So I think I'm going to bring Raya back in, drop Saliba essentially, get Greaves as a 4 million option in defense. Lewis, Mikolenko, Trent, Gabriel. I think this is a very balanced squad, to be fair. I do like the look of it. Now I'm just a bit concerned about Wood and Calvert-Lewin. That's always going to be a 50-50 call. So let's do this last poll. Which budget forward do you prefer? And I think this is down to DCL, Wood, and we'll probably put Vardy. I still think he's worth a shout. But yeah, there might have been a typo there, by the way. Yeah, I can't even spell forward, apparently. That is my mistake. Vandenberg, not a better 4 million. If he starts consistently, but there is a chance he drops out of the 11 when Brentford revert back to a back 4. They played a back 5 against Tottenham and a different sort of structure against City as well. Don't get me wrong, if Vandenberg starts consistently, he's probably the best 4 million defender. But either way, these players would sit on my bench more often than not. Hi Dylan, who to captain, Haaland or Salah? It would be Salah this week. Should I start DCL or Rodgers? I'd go for DCL. Wow, 60% have gone for Chris Wood. Calvert-Lewin second and Vardy third with just 10% of the vote. Probably the Arsenal fixture has a lot to do with it. Start Rodgers or Semenyo? I would go for Semenyo this week. Should I start Sells or Henderson? I would go for Sells. Ndai. Yeah, Ndai's good. Like I mentioned earlier, I liked his performance against Leicester a lot. DCL punt this week. Yeah, I do like DCL. And also Chris Wood next week does face Chelsea away. But afterwards, you've got Solanke with a pretty decent game against Brighton away. I mean, it's not great, to be fair. Solanke as a differential. I mean, look, I'm probably overthinking this, aren't I? I probably am. But I think this is probably the best balance for my squad. I'm probably going to end up making these transfers. If Raya doesn't play, so be it. I'm down to 10. There are some risky picks here on the wildcard. But I've made, ultimately, so many changes. I think the only players who stay are Trent, Chris Wood, Haaland. And that's pretty much it. Everyone else has changed. I did have Saka before. But, yeah, of course I made that transfer to Salah. And now going back to Saka will probably bite me very, very much. But I think these will be my final moves. And I'll just stick with this. So yeah, Chris Wood has won this vote quite comprehensively with 58%. Locks Zawali, good luck. I wish you the best. There's literally just less than a minute left now until the deadline. Lock in your teams now. I would not recommend leaving it until the very end. I've made my transfers. The site hasn't crashed. Let's bring in Rodgers now for Solanke. And there we go. So ultimately, beforehand, it would have been, yeah, Wood and Calvert-Lewin. I mean, to be fair, Calvert-Lewin over Rodgers would be my preference for this week. But overall, I do like this sort of structure. Let me just bring in Lewis for Greaves as well very quickly. Just about done it. And then Mikolenko for Greaves. Yeah, this is why I don't make late transfers, folks. Haaland's my captain, Saka's my vice. That's all sorted. So, yeah, literally with 15 seconds to go, I've done things very, very quickly. So, Raya in goal. There is a chance he doesn't play still, despite the positive news coming out this morning. Trent, Rico Lewis, and Gabriel as my back three, with Diaz, Mbumo, Semenyo, Saka, and Rodgers. Chris Wood and Haaland up front. I've got Valdimarsson, Solanke, Mikolenko, and Greaves on the bench. So that's pretty much it. Didn't even change Valdimarsson to Fabianski. That's not really a big deal. Vandenberg over Greaves would have been another shout. But this is what I've ended up going for. Solanke will probably come into the 11 in Game Week 7. So pretty happy with that overall. There are some issues, of course. No Salah will be my biggest one this week. I also sold Smith Rowe. I had some value tied up in him, and I do like Smith Rowe. but I've gone for Morgan Rogers here in the end. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the live chat. I almost forgot to make the changes, by the way. I was going to have Greaves in my starting 11. Jesus Christ. Yeah, we are locked in. Watkins, Welbeck, and Haaland, or your front line. I'd go for my front line. But to be fair, Welbeck is still great value. Watkins and Haaland speak for themselves, to be fair. Oh, right. Wait, what? Oh, right. Yeah. No, there was like 20 seconds to go. Yeah, it is what it is. I also have my other team. It's not my other team. It's my family member's team. That sometimes gets me confused. And I just saw Greaves and no Mikolenko and I was like, wait, what have I done? But never mind. I got it all sorted in the end. This is why I don't recommend late changes. But yeah, you kind of get used to it on this channel. Good luck as well, Cylindra. We are locked indeed, Safir. And Genius Gamer. Yeah, it would probably be Van den Berg, but just bear in mind he's not guaranteed to start week in, week out. I think Saliba and Gabriel worth the extra millions. The same goes for Raya in goal if he's fit. Don't get me wrong, I like Timber a lot as a player. When he was signed for Arsenal last summer, I was really backing him to be a great signing. He was very unfortunate with the injury, but as an FPL option, I think there are better. Saka and Palmer to Salah and Mbeumo. Not for me. I think Saka and Palmer is actually a better duo overall. I mean, for this week, you could argue Salah and Mbeumo is slightly ahead, but we're talking about very fine margins here. Locked Raya in my team, same here. Backing the early kickoff. To be honest, I don't mind if Haaland blanks, at least I jinx him. That's the way I see it, and the effective ownership is so high that if he does blank, I can still get a green arrow elsewhere. Like I said all along, my favourite captain for Gameweek 6 is Salah, and I got rid of him, so I'm well prepared for how poorly Gameweek 6 could go for me on the wildcard, but longer term, I think this will pay off. Madueke playing against Brighton with no manager. I don't really see too much into that. I just don't really fancy Madueke as an option. Yeah, locked as well. FPL Kevy, good luck. Same with you, Safir. And Twisted Parky. Looking forward to having Salah, Saka, and Palmer this week, as many will only have one or two. Yeah, I've only got one. And I've got Haaland, but... wait, do you have those three and Haaland? If so, fair play. That's very, very good. Solanke bench for Rodgers. Yeah, that was a conscious decision. I think the Ipswich away fixture is far better than United. Now, Spurs can score a few goals at Old Trafford, and Solanke actually scored in both fixtures for Bournemouth against Man United last season. So maybe it's a mistake, and I'll end up regretting that. But yeah, more often than not, Solanke will be in the starting 11 for now. I do like the sort of structure because it allows me to go to Jackson when Chelsea's fixtures turn for the better, and even Kai Havertz. You know, I've got quite a lot of options I can go to, and if I make one downgrade, I could even stretch to Watkins at some point. So, yeah, it's not perfect, of course. There are some problems with my team. When Rico Lewis is benched or a doubt to start, I'd have Mikolenko and Greaves to call upon, which isn't the best, but I think with Everton's fixtures, that could still work really well. And with my team selection and the original wildcard team I discussed throughout the week, I think there's almost a bit too much squad depth. You're going to have a lot of bench points every single week, and I'd rather focus my efforts on the starting 11. Like I said, I might have made a mistake. It is what it is. We will learn. Team Raya says Emers. Yeah, hopefully he starts. Otherwise, yeah. Strong team, Dylan. Good luck with the points fest. Oh, likewise to you, Tommy Raw. I'd be very happy if there was a points fest for us this week. We have an identical defence and midfield. Great minds think alike, as they say. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Harrison. The thing is, of course, there is always this debate about FPL being boring. Template, content creators, you know, kind of doing the same thing. I don't watch anything. I just do my own stuff. And then people will say, oh, you've actually got the same players this guy, or I've got the same players. And I don't know. Sometimes when you go for certain players like Haaland, who are so restrictive with their price, it kind of leads you towards going for the same budget options. It's a shame. And that's why I said early in the season, I'm not a big fan of Haaland doing so well. One, because it helps City win the league again. And two, because it just makes it so restrictive with what you can do. I went with Smith Rowe over Semenyo. Well, my personal preference would have been Smith Rowe, actually. Maybe not for this week, but longer term, I still like Smith Rowe a lot. I might regret selling him myself. So I think it's a 50-50 call. And Smith Rowe has been better so far this season. I probably just signed myself up to some Rodgers pain, by the way. I haven't experienced it all season, and I probably will now. Yeah, FPL Challenge I do play, but I was focused on my wild card. That was the main thing to do. I'll get it up now and see what I can build. But all the graphics and stuff you'll see will be out of date. If I just go here. So yeah, everything on the left, you can ignore it. It's from several weeks ago, from literally my worst FPL challenge result, and I've still got it on screen. 9 points in the game week, imagine that. From 5 players, but still. So only players from Africa is the, yeah, you can only go for Nana, as mentioned, I think, before. That was already mentioned. So we literally got no options in goal. In defense, I'd probably go for Aina here, but I'll see if there's anyone else. Mazraoui would be tempting, but I've got Nana already. Midfield, I mean, come on. I mean, you have to go for Salah. And I'd actually change the formation and go for Mbumo. So Mbumo, and up front, we're going to go for Jackson. Yeah, I think that speaks for itself. It seems almost too easy. That probably means I'm forgetting somebody. Even Ndai, someone who's just going to really impress this week. So that is my FPL challenge team. Seems like one of the most straightforward I've ever done. I've made the team in like 10 seconds. Compared to my wildcard, where I've been just thinking and just getting it wrong. Will I still benefit quite well this week with Salah? With Salah? Yeah, of course you can. Salah's one of the best options, if not the best, this week. Callum says, no Haaland, just the 3 Prem mids, and Watkins still very confident until Haaland bags another hat-trick. That's what I mean, you can't have them all, but I have to say I'm very impressed with that midfield. I started Aina over Lewis this week. That's fair. I think Fulham will score, but yeah, I mean, Forest have a good defence. If Raya starts, I'll be ecstatic. My 4th and 5th defenders would have been 4 million options had I gone with Saliba and Gabriel. Yeah, his ownership is still very high of David Raya, by the way. It's very high. If we actually go back to my FPL team and check his... That's my old team, by the way. This is my locked-in team. Yeah, his ownership is still 30.6%, so I don't really see this yellow flag and all the rumours from last night really playing a big part. This is the hardest wildcard ever. It's one of the most challenging I've experienced, but I'm always I always overthink with a wildcard, especially in FPL. In UCL, maybe I don't put as much thought into it, arguably, or I don't tinker as much, which is why I probably do better in that fantasy format. Hopefully not, Wasting. Hopefully not. Team value, only 100.1 million. Couldn't go with Wood or keep Smith Rowe. Yeah, team value can be very important at this stage, but I always prioritize information over early transfers and team value. So I didn't wildcard. I need Salah to go big, or I screwed up on no wildcard. I need Jota to play. Don't be surprised, mate, if it goes in your favour. It's honestly really close, some of these calls. Even in my case, selling Eze amongst Jota and Salah, all of this could backfire on me massively. Captain Haaland, obviously, says Sahil with his team. Very strong stuff. I do like Mazraoui. I've mentioned him a lot in the last few weeks. Even when he got that haul in Game Week 1, and I talked about skipping him for the first Transtips podcast of the season, I did say he's on my watch list, and he's someone to buy when the fixtures turn for the better. And he's been doing quite well, considering United's fixtures. Facing Brighton, he's still got an assist. He's gotten a few decent returns so far. I think Foden will play, but it's not guaranteed. I've just selected almost random players on the wildcard. I didn't come here soon enough. I'm guessing that's... Yeah. Yeah, even in my case, going for Greaves... I mean, having Rico Lewis in my starting 11 isn't something I envisaged from the beginning of the week. But I think the Rodri injury almost pushed that agenda a little bit. Who benched Lewis? Says British87. Yeah, I was close to doing that myself. Hi, Dylan, your favourite World Cup? Well, mine's going to be biased because it's going to be 2022 with Argentina winning it. I mean, look, before I was born, 1986 would have been another one. I mean, any World Cup where Argentina win is going to be my favourite, so I'm sorry about that. Excluding those ones, so 2022 is my favourite, you know that. I still like 2014 and 2010. I really like the amount of goals, the vibes, you could say, the great football played, a lot of attacking. You also had some top teams. The Netherlands 10 years ago were really good. Germany had a great team. France were all beginning to build a really strong foundation. Argentina had Messi, almost in his prime, essentially, and they had a decent, solid defense. Spain, of course, with that shock of being knocked out so early after dominating world football for 4 years. And 2010, I mean, yeah, it's so difficult. 2006, I actually remember parts of it, especially the World Cup final. I was rooting for France because, they had a lot of Arsenal players in there. So yeah, to be honest, I like all of them. My least favourite would be 2018. I don't think that was a great World Cup. I think it was quite... I know the World Cup final had a lot of goals, but we all knew France were going to win, unfortunately. So I think 2018 and 2002 would be the worst ones. But what kind of saved the 2002 one, of course, you had all the controversy, but you had a great Brazil side winning it with some of the best players of all time, the Brazilian Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and you had so many great nations in that period. But yeah, I think my favourite, 2022. FPL challenge for me is Aina, Salah, Semenyo have Mbeumo in my normal team. Yeah, I sometimes think like that where I go for different players compared to my FPL team, so that makes sense for me. So I'm going to give 5 memberships now. It's a relief to see it finally work. Oh, no, I just jinxed it. Okay, thank God it's now loaded up. So enjoy the memberships here. And also the free points. Imagine that. A membership gives you FPL points. 2010 was bad. I disagree, to be fair, but fair enough. So congratulations to Gary, Harrison, Weiseng, Aranya, and Durgesh for the memberships. Completely random. I think, like I said before, I did research, and being engaged in the chat and with the channel does boost your chances, but I don't choose who gets them. Possibly Singh. I don't know who you benched Rodgers for. Yeah, score predictions is up next. It has been a while. So let's forget this bloody team. That was my old one. That doesn't count anymore. So Newcastle, Man City. I'm going to go for 2-1 Man City. Arsenal, Leicester. 3-1 Arsenal. Brentford, West Ham. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Brentford. I'm actually thinking of 3-2. I think there could be a lot of goals in this game. I'm going to go for 3-2 Brentford, actually. Chelsea, Brighton. That's a tough one. 1-1 draw. Everton, Palace. Oh, another very difficult game to predict. I think if Branthwaite's back, I think that is a massive boost. I really do. So assuming Branthwaite's back, I'm going to go for an Everton 2-1 win. Nottingham Forest, Fulham. These are some really tough games, man. 1-1 between these two. I seem to always predict 1-1 for Forest. Wolves versus Liverpool. I'm going to go for like a 3-0 Liverpool, 4-1. I'll go for 3-0 for now. Ipswich Town versus Aston Villa. 3-1 Aston Villa. Man United Spurs. It's between 2-2 and 2-1, as mentioned earlier. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Man United win. And then finally, Bournemouth versus Southampton on the Monday. 3-1 Bournemouth. A lot of 3-1s predicted in this in today's predictions. But yeah, some of them I'm really torn about. So yeah, very difficult week to predict some of these matches, but that's what I've gone for at the moment. Let's go back to my final wildcard team. So for those that have just joined or are unaware of what I've done, since it was a bit of a fiasco. Raya in goal. There is a chance he doesn't play, but so be it. Trent, Lewis, Gabriel as my back three, with Diaz, Mbeumo, Semenyo, Saka, and Rodgers, who was a very late change. Chris Wood and Haaland up front, with Valdimarsson, Solanke, Mikalenko, and Greaves on my bench. I'm really hoping that some of my original picks on the wildcard, which could include Fleckin, Calvert-Lewin, Smith Rowe, don't go off. Otherwise, I might regret some of these decisions, but that's what I've ended up going for, and I'm fairly happy with it. Let's whiz through these last few questions and comments. There's still a lot going on, so I do appreciate it. We've got over 200 people watching, so thank you very much. Yeah, not surprised by that, Cyril. I'll try to update the graphics for FPL Challenge. I might even do that now quickly, but yeah, ultimately, I don't think many people keep track of how they're doing in terms of points. But yeah, let's try to do that very quickly. And then go to FPL Challenge and focus on that, since there's still the deadline for that fantasy format as well. Although it does seem like a very simple week to get these things sorted out. So I've gone for Onana, Aina, Salah, Mbeumo, and Jackson, with Salah as my captain. I mean, I think Salah captain is a no-brainer. Yeah, I think it's probably self-explanatory, but I'll see if I can think of something different. Decide to go against Haaland captaincy this week for Salah. Yeah, I think that's the right call. Has this been the most important game week so far? I think it will be, yeah. It's difficult to tell at this stage because no football's been played yet, but I think it will be. You've got maybe a difference in strategy. Some people that aren't wildcarding might have Salah. Then you've got those wildcarding mainly getting rid of him. A lot of 50-50 calls. Raya might be out. If so, a lot of wildcarders might be down to 10 men. Yeah, a lot is happening this week, so I think it will be. Alfred says, rate my team. I like the look of it, of course. Flecking isn't my favourite option, but at 4.5, he's probably the best on the wildcard. That looks very solid. I don't really have many complaints about it. Jackson looks great for the next 2 game weeks. Beyond that, not a big fan, but you can always move to Solanke or Havertz, so looks really good to me. Yeah, it's a very solid team. 8 out of 10 minimum. Could even be higher than that. I do like the look of it. Nucleam says, I have Pedro and Mosquera with Greaves and Verbruggen the only fit players on the bench. Should I prioritise the defence next from the Salah money or get Havertz? Oof, I'd probably prioritise the bench a little bit. I'm not sure who your other forwards are. So Joao Pedro is one of them, right? But who's your third forward alongside Haaland? That's what ultimately determines it, because if you've got a Chris Wood, Calvert-Lewin, then they're more than enough. You don't need to upgrade them to Havertz, in my opinion. I picked Semenyo in FPL Challenge and captained him. Great fixture, so not too shabby, but I'm always going to captain Salah here. Hopefully I jinx him. Some early sources say Jota starts. I hope so bad. Let me know where you got that from, but yeah, that's another player who can really burn me on the wildcards because I got rid of him. I think long-term it's the right call, but it'll be typical, right? As Weiseng says here, if Jota scores a few goals and then Diaz blanks, it is what it is. No Raya plus Lewis for me. Feels too risky. Yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. How does it feel to get rid of Barco? Good, I guess. That's one move that I know will pay off. That's for sure. But, yeah, I think with the rest, a lot of it is 50-50. How do you see Saka and Jackson or Palmer and Havertz? Very close. I'd give the edge towards Saka and Jackson. Rodgers is my first sub yet again. Fair enough. I'm hoping that he haws. The first time I'm actually cheering him on this season. I've gone for Jackson and DCL as forwards. Yeah. Calvert-Lewin could be a regret of mine not going for him. He was in my wildcard drafts all week. I do like Jackson, but not beyond the next 2. I don't like Chelsea's fixtures, and I do think there will be a regression. Not a lot. I still think they're doing fairly well, playing some good football, but yeah, I think it makes sense. Let's change the graphics here on screen so we're not that big at the back here anymore. We're at Africa. We'll call it Africa. Let's get this up. Okay. For some reason this isn't working. All right. Let's get this up. Ah, okay. Interesting. All right, this should be done fairly soon. I mean, it's just updating the FPL Challenge graphics. Yeah, all my focus for the last couple of days have been on my wildcard, and I'm hoping it pays off, but I've always got that sneaky feeling something is about to go horribly wrong. So, yeah. FPL Challenge should be fairly decent, I think, with that squad. It will probably be very template as well. I literally picked in 10 seconds, so... Yeah, let's get this up. FPL Challenge. Okay. And then, yeah, the other thing to really change is the points. I don't even know what I got last week, to be quite honest with you. What did I get last week? That is probably a good question. I'll check it now. So last week I got 43, not great. So Martinez and Romero blanked. I did captain Diaz, which saved me, and Duran got a goal at the very end. Bailey blanked. Yeah, so pretty standard stuff. Oh dear, I hope it's not a repeat of the captaincy with Salah getting 16 points for Christ's sake, but I'm pretty much expecting it at this point. I'll probably regret wildcarding. It's just typical, isn't it? So 43 points. I'll add that. Much better than the 9 you see from before. Much better, in fact. But that challenge was terrible. 9 points for the newly promoted clubs. You barely had any budget to work with there. So let's now get the challenge points up quickly and modify that. So yeah, apologies for the delay. I'll get back to your questions very soon. And keep your eyes peeled for your fantasy content over the weekend, because the Limitless team was published yesterday. The wildcard and team selection will be out in the next couple of days. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we have the deadline stream for match day 2. Here we go. This will be it. All right, so 43. Yeah, I think that should be good. Okay. All right, that's all sorted in just a couple of seconds, and then we're back to your questions. But yeah, just for those that are interested in FPL Challenge, yes, it's a bit of fun, you know, it's a bit of fun. Something different. But yeah, that is it. I'll leave that on for a little while longer. Still no Arsenal defence for me, as I try my best not to wildcard anytime soon. That's fair, but if you've got Saka or Arsenal players, then you should be decent. Who will score more this weekend? Haaland, Salah, Saka, or Palmer? Salah. I'm kind of just bracing myself for it. FPL MK says, did Pedro and Watkins and Palmer for Haaland, DCL, and Dibbling? You are getting rid of 2 top quality assets there in Palmer and Watkins, but yeah, with Haaland, it seems like he just justifies everything, any kind of decision. 2010 World Cup, says Chad Scott. Sehul says 2006 was great too. Portugal was cooking until the semi-finals, but Italy were just too strong. Yeah, of course, 2006 was just about my time, but I did forget a lot of it. I was very young when that was going on. So yeah, that's why I've got a soft spot for 2010 and 2014. Yeah, the game should be updated very soon. They have changed that this season where it updates quicker, but it will take a little while. Solanke on pens now that Son is injured. I think Son will play still. He had some pain against Karabag. He was subbed off, but I think Son will play. My favourite wildcard. Stop thinking about wildcard. My favourite World Cup was 2006. Zidane shows his character. Yeah, I think 2006 is a good shout, to be fair. Good team, Easy 99. Not too sure about Bernardo Silva and Rice. You got some quite rogue picks in there, to be fair, but they could pay off. Ndidi's had a good season so far. Argentina were really good in 2006. I was 11 back then, and I remember they got really unlucky against the host Germany on pens. Yeah, and also the famous decision not to sub on Messi. Also taking off Riquelme. A very defensive substitution by Peckerman. But it was a very close battle. I think Argentina should have got the job done, but it is what it is. 2010 was bad, yeah, as covered earlier. Doesn't even let me change anything, says Ibrahim. Okay, 1 second I see Ricolas is benched, then he's starting. Yeah, I think he is starting, according to FPL Tony. So, yeah, that also helped me to just start him today and see what it is. But, yeah, going forwards, I might have some concerns with my defensive line. That Materazzi deserved the headbutt. Yeah, I mean, for what he said, allegedly, which I think he did, he probably did. Like and sub people, says Chad. Thank you very much. Let's actually see how we're doing on the likes front. Yeah, we have got to over 200. Thank you very much. Keep on smashing the like button if you haven't already. Also, huge shout out to the channel members and patrons. I'll be giving you a quick shout out very soon, actually. I have Jackson, Haaland, and Welbeck as my forwards. Is there a better like-for-like player I can add in place of Welbeck? Well, Calvert-Lewin and Wood would definitely be up there, but if you can't afford them, then I think Jamie Vardy would probably enter the equation. Thank you, Gary. Good luck as well, Dara. Need a big C and Jackson before the stream. Yeah, well, with the C, I've done that before. I think those days are behind me now. Muchas gracias, amigo. Thank you, Harrison. Do you think Arsenal defenders without Raya face big challenges against Vardy and Mavididi? Even if Raya's there, I think Leicester have the capability of scoring, and I just think in these so-called easier home games for Arsenal, I think they'll play more offensively, and I can see them leaking a few chances and possibly a few goals against Leicester and Southampton, but playing it based on the fixtures and Arsenal's, defensive stats since last season, I think it just makes sense to go for a double up. Thank you, Gary. Green Arrow chasing a score over 59. I wish you the best, and let's see how it goes. Congrats, new members. Yeah, including yourself, Safir. Alfred says, rate my team. Yeah, that was covered. It's a good squad. Twan says, hi, Dylan. Who do you think will win the Premier League this year? No, I don't think Chelsea have a chance, to be quite honest with you, no. For me, it's between Arsenal and Man City. I think Liverpool also are there, to be honest. I think those three have a chance. I don't see anybody else really coming close. I'm personally going to say Arsenal, and I think the Rodri injury does boost their chances, but don't write off City. They still have an excellent opportunity, and yeah, I mean, they just seem to win it every single year. Everton going to be hungry for points. However, as a red, 3-2 Palace, Everton go 2-0 up. If that happens again, I think Everton fans will go mental. I actually predicted against Villa a 3-2 win for Villa, but then once I made that prediction, I was thinking, wait, but didn't they just lose 3-2? Surely it won't happen again, and that's what ended up being the case. I just realised City has an early kickoff and I captain Haaland. I'm fairly sure we've had early kickoffs already this season. Salah broke it with ease in one of the first few gameweeks of the season. I think it was against Ipswich, actually, so not really too fussed about that. Gakpo is going to start, I think. Yeah, I'm hoping he does over Jota, considering I just sold him. Aranya says, wow, I was not expecting to get that free membership since you said it's completely random. Maybe the super chat somehow boosted my odds or something. I don't know. Nevertheless, thank you so much. No worries, Aranya, and thank you for the super chats today and all the contributions to the channel. I appreciate it, and I think that's well deserved for the membership. So enjoy it, and always keep your eyes peeled on the community tab on YouTube for early access to my videos. Solanke on the bench and Rodgers starting is... Well, let's wait and see. If Solanke scores and Rodgers does nothing, I'll cry probably at the end. So Hill says, hopefully Raya plays. I don't have a starting goalkeeper on my bench. I think that's the case for a lot of people. But even if he misses out this week, he'll be back in Game Week 7. So I'm not too concerned. I'm just hoping he starts today. That'd be great. Green Arrow incoming. Hopefully. It has been, 4 green arrows out of 5 for me? But the one red I got was a very big one, from 266k to 900,000 at the time. No worries to Tapaki, thank you very much as always. Thank you, Callum Jr. I'll see you very soon, possibly tomorrow for the reaction stream. I'll keep you updated. Certainly on Tuesday for the UCL Fantasy Deadline stream. Yeah, Lewis starting in midfield. Yeah, I do like him a lot. I think Newcastle score, but Rico Lewis is a great choice when he starts. Have an identical team to you apart from I've got Bodro and DCL. Yeah, so I'm assuming you don't have Calvert-Lewin and you probably have Bodro instead of Greaves or Mikolenko. Yeah, that's fair. Low-key think Ipswich might draw or win against Villa, 1-1 or 2-1. That's my rogue result for the week. You might be onto something there, Harrison. With Rodgers in my team, I'm kind of hoping he gets away with something, but yeah, that's not a bad shout. I think the Bayern Munich game is very important for Villa, and they might be a bit distracted. FPL Challenge, not many options this week. I agree. Cyril says, Doku, Savinho and Foden all benched. What's going on there, I reckon? So Grealish starts then. Bernardo Silva probably on the other side. Rico Lewis with Kovacic. Maybe Gundogan. Yeah, let's wait and see. Thoughts on Salah and using triple captain on him? I like having Salah a lot for Game Week 6, but I think in the long term it makes sense to sell him for Saka and then spending those funds elsewhere. Triple captain is not bad against Wolves, considering they might have a lot of illnesses and injuries and stuff like that, but I probably wouldn't triple captain him this week. That's the way I see it. Yeah, no Foden, no Savio. Yeah, I was asked about Savio earlier, and as I mentioned, really good performance against Arsenal. I was very impressed by him, but I just don't trust him to be nailed on. The same goes for Rico Lewis, to be fair, but no matter who you go for with City assets, try to ensure you've got the backup in place. I went against Haaland and Captain Salah 2 weeks in a row. Captain Haaland this week. I've done the same thing, so it probably means Salah does even better. It is the way of the game. Twan says, hi Dylan, Cole Palmer and DCL plus Lissandro plus Raul, or Mbumo, Jackson, Delict, Mezraoui and DCL. Which formation better for the wildcard? Well, the deadline has passed, so if this is for Game Week 7, let me know. But my preference would be Mbumo, Jackson, Mezraoui and DCL. Now, the Palmer option looks really good, to be fair. But I just think as an overall quartet, I really like the second one. Who would you maybe consider over Diaz in a couple of weeks? Jared Bowen. So RCM, your old username, what does it mean? It's just my initials, really. Not in any particular order, that's what I'll say. Let's protect my identity. But something like that. Conseguirlo de nuevo, says Weiseng. Let's see. Newcastle vs City lineup already out. Yeah, we can go through that. I'll do that in just a few seconds, but let's actually give a shout out first to the patrons and challengers. So big up to Aldo Victoria, Chad Vogler, JP SPB, Lorientu, Notre Dame, what a name, Luke O'Donnell, Daniel Zaremba, AMZ, Salman, also to Belcat, Stephen Reed, Juan, Doran. I'm thinking of Duran. Sorry, Doran Masumi. Sorry. Matt Steen, Nikhil Patel, Alex Orlov, Luis Alexander, Rodrigo Urias, Federico Caliso, and also let's get the updated members, since we've got some new members here today as well. So let's get these up. So Gunner24, Aranya, Adnan, Gary, Callum Jr., Durgesh, Harrison James, Awaysing, Tommy Raw, Safir, Ahmed, Bestie, Arda Merich, Lastborn XBL, Exotic Log, Miguel Mario, Dombrew, Gopal, Toronto Tokyo, Otter King, Kenny Silvera, Abhishek, Gabriel, Ventislav, Unruly DMV, Rishi, Nathama, Mauro Rodriguez, Aman, Jazabi, Lavinier, Simon Spears, Ulysses, Kat, aka Keith, thank you very much, That Air, George Popescu, Alex Leadham, Gabriel Fernandez, and John G. Thank you very much to all of those that have signed up as a patron or channel member. You can always gain access to my videos very early on, sometimes days in advance. And also you can see my teams at times when maybe I'm minimizing copying and I don't show it until the very end, which has been the case in UCL Fantasy before. So big up to all of you. Let's now talk about the Newcastle and Man City starting 11s. So we have a few surprises, especially on the Man City front, but we'll start off with Newcastle. So let's get this up. I've got both links ready here. So let's get Newcastle up first. Well, this is Man City. Great stuff, Dylan. So let's get Newcastle up here. So, Nick Pope in goal with Trippier, Share, Jolinton, Tonali, Gordon, Barnes, Hall, Murphy, Byrne, and Bruno Guimaraes. So, no Isak. He isn't even on the bench, but Tonali comes in. That is a massive boost to Newcastle's midfield. So, we would be seeing, Jacob Murphy, Barnes, and Anthony Gordon up front, it looks like. Very interesting. And Gordon did score against City last season at St James's Park, but he's been quite indifferent so far in this campaign. As for Man City, they've gone for Ederson, Walker, Akanji, Ruben Dias, Gavardio, Rico Lewis, Kovacic, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Grealish, and Erling Haaland. So I've currently got Lewis and Erling Haaland captain in this game. So it's all looking good on that front. No Savio, no Doku. Some very big surprises there, actually. Going template with the picks. Jota's the kind of guy to score a hat-trick today. Yeah, I could see him getting a brace if he starts, and I just hope he doesn't. Foden also not starting. No, earlier I think people were saying they don't start. There might have been one or two that said otherwise, but yeah. No, I didn't watch the Futsal World Cup. I sometimes see results that Argentina get in there, but I never really watched. Yeah, Lewis in, exactly that. Only one goalkeeper to choose in this week's challenge. Tough to go against Onana. Yeah, maybe you just go with no one, right? And you just go with 4, but I don't think you're allowed to do that. Was close to going Tavernier over Semenyo for a real differential. I think he's close to the top of shots inside the box taken this year. And then Semenyo of shots in general. You are correct. And also, at least at one stage this season, Tavernier was top for XG amongst all midfielders, even over Salah. Yeah, no Isak, Gavardio, and Lewis start for City. Yeah, no Isak, and then the other 2 start for City. Thank you for all the updates. Yeah, it would be big. I just personally don't see Chelsea keeping Brighton out, but maybe you will. Thank you, Durgesh, as well, for all your contributions. Yes, differential of the week, mate, or unpopular opinion. I think I said this earlier, but I'm trying to remember who I said now. I think Bowen was one of my differentials, but mainly it's kind of like a long-term pick, so to speak. But I'd probably say Bowen. Despite West Ham being terrible, I really like the look of Bowen. How long does it take, an hour or half an hour to update? Typically an hour, but I think this season it's been a bit quicker. How do you see Saka and Jackson or Palmer and Havertz for the next 2-3 weeks? Saka and Jackson for me would probably be the slightly better duo, with Havertz potentially playing in the midfield at times, and I also think Saka with those fixtures could do really well. Mackenzie with his team saving the wildcard till 12. Looks really strong. You can compete with wildcarders. If Jota starts, you're in a really good place. So, yeah, I don't really blame you there. Good wildcard team, Abby. Jimenez is a nice differential. Same with Fabio Carvalho. I do prefer Rodgers, Semenyo, and Smith-Rowe, and I know you've got Rodgers already, but Carvalho could work. Yeah, I like the look of it overall. Of course, it's not perfect. Same with my team. There's a lot of flaws in my squad, but yeah, having Salah is a really big thing, I think. That could be one of the difference makers for you. Yeah, I'm on the wild card. Yeah. Punjabi says, hey Dylan, did you gift more than 5 memberships today? Yeah, I gifted 5 at the beginning and 5 towards the end. Looks like Lewis is playing in the midfield, so fair play having him. Well, for this week it looks good, but what about next week or the week after? That's why I've got Mikolenko and Greaves, just in case, but going for Solanke has maybe decreased my overall squad strength, but it does also cause less issues in terms of team selection and bench points. Welcome, Tottenham for life, good to see you. Adam says, should I sell Border for Gabriel for a -4? I was asked this earlier and I said yes, actually. Border is still a good option, don't get me wrong, but I think Gabriel and Saliba are worth that hit for the long term. Do you think Man City be punished, either relegated or fined? Do you think some big players will leave? I personally don't think they'll be punished to the extent that many people believe they will be punished or that they should be punished. But if they were relegated or fined, I mean, fined is probably the most realistic punishment, so to speak. If they were relegated or given points deductions, yeah, I think several big players could leave, but my personal take is that they won't be punished to that extent. Nice hat-trick from, whoa, would be good. I'm guessing you're talking about Chris Wood, right? Let's not talk more about that. Yeah, pretty much, Kavish. It's a very basic kind of challenge with the African players only. Only one African goalkeeper in the Premier League. Yeah, Ricolo's playing in the midfield. I mean, like I mentioned in my recent podcast, with Rodri injured, that always opens up the doors for Ricolo to play as that inverted fullback in the midfield. So I do like the look of it. Yeah, Isak is completely out. Exactly that. Luis Diaz, not sure what the question is. As for captain, not for me, but I do like Diaz a lot. It's probably going to be typical for Jota to do well now and Diaz to blank. Because everyone seems to have a similar team for Fantasy Challenge, I've gone rogue and probably wrong with Semenyo over Salah. As captain or in your team? That's quite surprising. Yeah, fair enough. I don't have Salah in my FPL team, so at least I want to get something out of it should he go big. So you won't find me getting rid of Salah, that's for sure. And I'll be captaining him, just like I did with Diaz last week. Bernardo right mid and Grealish left. Yeah, that's my assumption as well. That's probably what we're going to see. I would have started Lewis this week, but Newcastle could score even without Isak. Isak has been injured. He's had a few problems recently. He had that eye injury against Wolves, very recently, and then he had like a foot problem, I believe. But he was always a doubt for this week, and I was asked about him earlier, and I said I personally don't think he will play. And yeah, he's a sell, unfortunately. I've been talking about this for the last week or two. Unfortunately, he is now a sell for those that have him. By the way, we were playing in right centre mid in school football. I mainly played as a goalkeeper, actually. Quick reflexes. Yeah, that was kind of my main thing. Diving as well. Not the bad diving you see from outfield players. But yeah, I also played as a striker, when I was really young, when I first started playing a lot of football. I was actually doing quite well there. Then I moved to the goalkeeper position. I don't know, something about it. I just really like the position. And then when I play outfield, I'd play in defense or kind of defensive midfield, so to speak. So yeah, I was kind of more of a defensive-minded player in the end. Yeah, no Isak, broken toe. Thank you for the update, Obafemi. Yeah, unfortunately, he is out. Pray for Brighton trending on Twitter. Yeah, someone's got to humble these Chelsea fans, mate. What's up with Foden? So strange not playing again. Oh, you're right. I was asked about this earlier. People even saying, Player of the Year Foden. You know, why is he not playing? Yeah, it's surprising, but there might be something behind the scenes, possibly. But I just think tactically, Pep has got this sort of formation and ideas in mind for this season, and it'll take a while for Foden to break into that team. Yeah, Pep is the ultimate troll. That's why with Lewis, I've always said it, try to have backup. He might be playing now, he might be enjoying points in Game Week 6, but what about the future? It could be a big issue. Dr. Raf says, should I wildcard in 7 to get Haaland? My team is really good, but feel like I'm riding my luck. I see what you're saying. It's a good question because you're happy with your team, but you feel like you're a bit lucky by going without Haaland. The thing is, Haaland's run from Game Week 7 to 12, I think, or at least to 11, is incredible. You pretty much don't want to go without him, and he also solves captaincy solutions. When Salah faces Arsenal away, you've got Haaland with a plum fixture against Southampton at home. So, yeah, I mean, a wild card for one player seems excessive, but it is Erling Haaland we're talking about. I don't know your team, to be quite honest with you. If I knew who you had, you can do it in the comment section later on, by the way, and I'll respond. I can get back to you on it, but my initial instinct is probably to take a -4 or a -8 for Haaland instead of wildcarding, if you can do that. Welbeck, take my energy. Fair enough. Prophet88 says Greaves and Rodgers, Solanke versus Fast, Smith Rowe, DCL. Points-wise, I see these combinations virtually equal. Yeah, that was similar to what I put in the poll earlier. Let me end this one, by the way. Chris Wood has won it with over half the votes. I've gone for Greaves, Rodgers, and Solanke personally, so that's what I kind of lean towards. Do you think Nkunku could put pressure on Jackson's minutes moving forward? There's a slight chance, but I think Jackson is first choice. He's also in great form himself, so I don't see Nkunku displacing him anytime soon. Nice, I agree with Bowen. Also think Kudus passed the eye test but no returns. Exactly that. He's hit the post a few times, had a few shots just wide, like the one against Palace a few weeks ago. Kudus has been very frustrating. Yeah, I think Raya will start. That's why I've gone for him, but I do recognise there's still a chance that he doesn't. He was spotted with the squad today, but even just last night there were reports that he wasn't in the hotel, so it's a difficult one. I don't think it's a guarantee that he starts, even with the news we got in this morning, but I'm going to assume he does, and I hope he does for my Game Week 6 wildcard sake. That wildcard team was impossible. He had 4 Liverpool. There might have been. I might have escaped my mind whilst reading it. Went for Saliba instead of Gabriel with Rodgers for more squad depth, and the Ipswich fixture this game week. I was sceptical about starting Solanke versus United, but Rodgers versus Ipswich looks much better now. Yeah, squad depth is important. I like having a bit, some good options on the bench, at least 1 or 2. I previously had 3 good options on my bench, which are like Mikalenko, Mazraoui, and it would have been Smith Rowe or Rodgers. I see that as too strong for a bench. I know that might seem a bit silly. You'd rather have these players than not have them, but having bench points can be very frustrating, and it's all about that balance and spending as much money as possible on your starting 11. But I think what you discussed there is very reasonable. I would have captained Salah this week, but Haaland and Watkins are top options as well. Rico Lewis is my favourite Man City player to take, but the deadline has passed, so be aware of that. How about my team, says Octave. Very strong as well. My only concern is Keane, or my biggest concern would be Keane. Once Branthwaite is back, he will drop to the bench, so try to have someone else in place. And with Welbeck's fixtures, you could make a move there in Game Week 7. Neither Chelsea or City will get much of a punishment, we all know it. Yeah, I agree. That's why you just got to deal with it and try to beat them on the pitch. That's pretty much the way to go. Watkins scoring a brace versus Ipswich. I could see that happening. I think he'll definitely score, and my prediction was 3-1 Villa. Yeah, I'll go for the 2 Watkins goals. I think that's definitely very likely. Hey, do you think I should transfer Eze to get Mbeumo? I want to see what Eze does this weekend, but it's getting hard to justify having him. Yeah, I would make that transfer, but of course, the deadline's passed. You could make that move in Game Week 7 instead. If Eze disappoints again, just make the move. I think Mbeumo is a great option. He's my favourite mid-price midfielder, even over Diaz and Bowen. Hey, Dylan Maddison, an option in the coming weeks? Yeah. Great underlying stats, the expected assists, the expected goal involvements. But I personally prefer Bowen, Diaz, and also Mbeumo. They're my favourites in that price bracket. Yeah, I think you're right. Broken toe. I heard he took a shot last week to try mitigate the pain. Yeah, I think that's the reason why he is missing out today. The man, the myth, the legend says, hey Dylan, apart from Game Week 6 to 7, just based on template teams and fixtures, when do you think would be a good week to wildcard? Off the top of my head, I think Game Week 12 could be another good opportunity. So Spurs have Man City that week, and they still have some decent fixtures afterwards, but not as appealing as Game Week 6 to 11. You've also got Arsenal players with a fantastic run until April, essentially, and you could avoid them between Game Weeks 9 to 11 or trim them down. I think, yeah, I nearly said I think like Mourinho. Probably Game Week 12 springs to mind, but it all depends on the context and the players you have. Of course, you did provide a little bit there. Yeah, score predictions I have covered already. I said 3-1 City originally, but I did change it to 2-1. I have more use of fantasy points in Game Week 1 than my entire FPL points. Jesus, yeah. I mean, match day 1 was crazy. For example, I got 118 points and my rank is like 20,000 in UCL Fantasy, so a lot of people did well last week. Thoughts on United, 11th in the Premier League and in Europa League. I think Ten Hag might be the first manager sacked. I actually think Gary O'Neill, especially if they lose badly today, because that's 1 win out of 15 for Wolves across in the Premier League since last season. I know they've got a lot of injuries and problems, even illnesses going into this game, which is very unfortunate, but I think Gary O'Neill will be the first one. And with Ten Hag, I don't know, there's still a lot of United fans that back him, and I do, appreciate that, when fans always back the manager. I did something similar with Emery, but then it came to a point where enough's enough, you've got to make a change, and I think United can do better than Ten Hag. It's as simple as that. A few years ago, I actually wanted Ten Hag for Arsenal because I was very impressed by what he did with Ajax, but he hasn't done anywhere near that level of work with Man United, and the football hasn't been great for the most part, but I do recognise that in recent matches, they have been creating chances, and they probably should have won those games by a comfortable margin. Crystal Palace, they should have won that game. They had some big opportunities, they didn't take them, but I don't think it's sustainable, and look how much they spend. They should be, at a minimum, competing for 3rd or 4th, and they aren't doing it. Ezra says, my mini-league friends gone with Captain Saka, Semenyo and Bumo, no Haaland captain. Hope he scores a brace. Yeah, I've got Haaland captain, but I really hope he blanks. I can't lie to you there, mate. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one between you and your mini-league rivals. No worries, Tottenham for life. Chase says, Foden played 90 minutes against Watford. He'll probably start in the Champions League. You are correct, I think, with your assessment. That's probably what's going to happen. Sahil says, yeah, I could see Brighton winning. Chelsea haven't been any decent team. I mean, don't get me wrong, West Ham have been terrible, but beating them 3-0 away from home is still quite impressive. I mean, how many times does a team go to West Ham and batter them? I mean, Arsenal is the last one I can really remember. And City usually beat them quite comprehensively by 2 or 3 goals, right? But yeah, I think Chelsea have been good recently. You can't discredit what they've been doing, but I think Brighton is a level above Bournemouth, West Ham, and these teams have been playing recently. So yeah, I think they'll draw. Brighton can come away with a win, but I think Chelsea gets something. Do you think Calafiori will start? I mean, he started against Bolton, subbed off around 60, 70 minutes. Obviously played against City, subbed off early. I think he plays, yeah. I think White will be on the bench, especially if there's any persisting injury. Hassan says, I've both Salah and Haaland in my team, but I don't have Trent. Should I take out Salah to Palmer in 7 to get Trent for a -4? Probably not. But that's one of my reasons for going without Salah. It allows me to go for Trent and a balanced squad overall. But I wouldn't do it for a -4 hit, no. I think Salah against Palace is a great option. He actually scored a hat-trick off the bench at that stadium not so long ago. But of course, different circumstances. But I wouldn't do it. I guess United would do great against Spurs, Xerxes in particular. They all get chances, but Xerxes has been quite wasteful with his finishing. I think Garnacho, if he starts, would be a really good shout. I could see him scoring against Spurs. Fernandes as well, if he can finally get his shooting boots on. Gundogan as an FPL option. I just still see rotation with Foden and De Bruyne yet to come into the starting 11 on a consistent basis. Of course, De Bruyne got injured recently, which is why he's now out. But I just don't trust Gundogan to start week in, week out, really. And that's why I haven't really recommended him. If that changes, then yeah, he's definitely one to look at. And he had a big chance against Arsenal where Gabriel made a little mistake. Gundogan did really well to get that chance, but didn't really do much apart from that. I bought Savio on my wildcard. Well, that hasn't worked out just yet, but with any City player you go for, there's always a risk of rotation. So You got to be prepared for it. If you've got decent bench cover and Savio doesn't play a single minute, you might be back in business. My only starting bench players are Greaves and Mazraoui. I like to go big on the starting 11 personally. Same here. That's what I usually like to do. Have one or two good options on the bench, but not three, very good options that could start week in, week out theoretically. And that's the key reason why I made those late changes. Ahmed says, should we go for him, Gundogan? At the moment, I'd say no. If he can nail down a spot, then I'll think differently. People saying Diaz, possibly a good option for the couple of weeks. Who is in then? Who looks good? Similar price, of course, Mbeumo is a very simple one. But I'd also look at Bowen. I really like the look of him. If West Ham can improve, I think Bowen can easily be a great option. Liverpool 5-1. I said 3-0 my prediction, and I was torn between that and 4-1. Yeah, they could easily win 5-1 again against Wolves, but I think it'll be a bit tougher than that. Wolves had tough fixtures, I think. Dyche would go first. Yeah, Dyche is another one. And you're right, Wolves had some tough games, but it's a run from last season where they had some easier games and still lost a lot of them. So they've got a poor record in the last 15. How many will Haaland score today and UCL? Oh, depends on his minutes. I think he'll get a goal today, possibly two, and in the Champions League he could get a hat-trick, honestly. My current prediction will be 1 against Newcastle and 2 in midweek. Hopefully I haven't missed any super chats. I don't think I have, but just double check. Oh, thank you, by the way, Rise, for the super chat. If you've got any comment, be sure to let me know, by the way. I appreciate that. And also, thank you to Abhishek. I didn't see this as well. This was from earlier. So massive shout out to all the people who sent in super chats today and all the new members, mainly the ones... the new members would have been the ones that I gifted. So thank you very much for supporting the channel, and it's a nice reward. And yeah, let's get off that City team. I've been on that for far too long. So this is my current team with the wild card. Did you get FC25? No. I didn't get it for some time last year. And I think the year before that, I got it in Christmas. I can't remember now. It's kind of a blur. I used to get it quite early on, like in September or October. But I'm just not really feeling it. And yeah, I think I've got Football Manager. I got it for free. I'm playing that from time to time on my laptop. I'm playing Elden Ring and some very good games. So yeah, I'm just not really feeling FC25. It's the same crap every year, isn't it? For some reason, the chat has refreshed, so I'm going to have to see which ones I haven't answered yet. So yeah, for this one, I did go for 2-1 United. I'm torn between that and 2-2, which was the score last year. Yeah, the team is up on screen now. Were there any Liverpool leaks tonight? I don't think so, but someone mentioned Jota starting. I'm not sure how reliable the source would have been. I could see Dyche getting the boot, even though I think he'll be able to keep them up, and they'll bring back Moyes. That's actually a great shout, David Moyes. You know, he is an Everton legend, in my opinion, or at least he's a folk hero. He did a very good job there. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad shout, but I think Dyche should still be kept. I mean, he starts the season slowly, typically, and then he gets going afterwards. Relegation predictions. Yeah, Southampton, for me, will go down. I still think Ipswich, and I'd probably say Leicester in 18th, but with Leicester, I'm always a bit kind of uneasy about saying they're relegated or they will be relegated. But Southampton, I'm fairly sure they will go down, probably in last. That's my prediction. And I'll go for Ipswich in 19th. Yeah, I'll stick with Leicester for now in 18th, but I think Wolves are in trouble, even Everton. Those two are in the thick of it. I'm also on Wildcard 12, planning to get triple Arsenal and Chelsea alongside Bournemouth, Brighton and Wolves assets. That's fairly decent. I wish I could have kept the wildcard, if possible, for a little bit longer, but I just felt I had to with my situation. Of course, it's not necessarily the case for everybody. If Jota starts and scores, I'll probably feel very badly about it, you know, amongst Salah wreaking havoc. But yeah, Game Week 12 looks fairly good. Twister Parky says, only thing I would say is West Ham played far too high versus Chelsea, made it easy for them. Too many spaces and no Southcheck, etc. was just mad. Yeah, Southcheck had a good start to the season, so to see him benched recently is a bit awkward. They are going for a more defensive kind of duo of Alvarez and Guido Rodriguez, but I think Southcheck will be better over Alvarez. Højlund, Rashford and Garnacho's pace might be the difference against Spurs with the high line. Yeah, I think Garnacho's the one I'd really highlight from those lot. Rashford has a good record against top 6 clubs, so he's always a good option in those sort of matches. Do you think Fabianski could start soon, given West Ham's poor form defensively? Possibly, and that could be another regret on my wildcard, because I've gone for Valdimarsson. I didn't really make that late change to Fabianski in the end, but he did play in the 5-1 loss against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, so I think it's more of a defensive issue. Areola hasn't been bad. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been great necessarily. I think last season he was making some top saves, even in a 6-0 defeat against Arsenal. I remember he made a really good save. But yeah, I just don't really think there's a clear standout between Fabianski and Areola right now. So you could see a change happen at some stage, but it's not guaranteed. Who would you have benched this week between Eze and Smith Rowe? I would have benched Smith Rowe. De Ligt scoring today from a pinpoint Bruno corner. He has been a menace from those set pieces. He scored a few weeks ago against Southampton, and of course he came close against Crystal Palace very recently. I think Maddison's fine. He's had a good start to the season. Great underlying numbers, but I'd rather go for Mbeumo, Diaz and Bowen. Rico Lewis has to be great value now. He can play in CDM as well as right back, left back. Yeah, but he'll also be frustrating. He will be benched from time to time. You have to be prepared for it. As long as you've got good squad depth, that's going to be good. Lads, remember to like the stream. Thank you very much. I've started Solanke over Rodgers in the starting lineup, says Scott. That's fair enough. I could see it being 2-2. I've gone for 2-1. I'm torn between those two predictions, but yeah, if that's the case, Solanke's got a good chance of scoring, so it's not bad. Jota waiting for more sources on that one. Yeah. Elden Ring lover here, although DLC doesn't match the hype. I haven't played much of Elden Ring. Yeah, recently I haven't been on too much, but I've actually started making some strides because I was a bit of a newcomer to Elden Ring. Yeah, it's an experience, isn't it? Compared to other Souls games, it's easier, so there is that. I haven't played the DLC though, and I probably won't for some time. Maddison a good pick, decent, but I think they're better ultimately. That's the way I see it. Team that people should be doing well, but has been poor this season. Oh, that people thought that would be doing well. I think Crystal Palace would be up there. I mean, they haven't won a game this season, so Crystal Palace, I think, would be one of them. Are Saka and Mbeumo good captains this week? Yes. I just think Salah and Haaland are better, but Saka certainly is up there. He's in the top 3. Watkins would be 4th, and I think Mbeumo is easily in the top 10. I think sacking Ten Hag midway through the season might be harsh. Who knows? He could get us to the Europa and top 4 finish by the end of the season. Our defense has improved by a lot and chance creation. Yeah, I mean, I personally think the right time would have been to sack him after the FA Cup final. But midway through a season, it's always tough. It can work out. You get an immediate manager bounce like we saw with Conte a few years ago. We've seen multiple examples throughout the years about that. But yeah, I agree. I think United have improved in terms of chance creation and defensively a bit more solid. But I still think there are better managers in the long term than Ten Hag. And certainly if he doesn't achieve those objectives of winning a trophy or finishing top 4, at least one of those, I think he should be sacked. If they were to sack him, it would be at the end of the season. Yeah, but if the results get that bad or they go on a poor run, then yeah, I think he does go. But we'll wait and see, because I do think they wanted to replace him, but they talked to other managers in the summer. They weren't really convinced about them being an upgrade on Ten Hag, so they stuck with him. How good of an indicator is the ICT index? It's decent. I wouldn't really look too much into it. And of course, after only a few game weeks, it's a very small sample size, but it's worth looking at from time to time. I used to look at it quite a lot when I first started off FPL, but it's not something I really would base decisions off. Michael Hyatt says, took a -4 to switch Rob Pedro for Wood instead of playing Greaves. Good idea. Long term, I think that pays off, especially with Brighton's fixtures turning for the worst. Yeah, West Ham as well. That crossed my mind. Yeah, either them or Crystal Palace. West Ham had a good summer as well, which maybe would have boosted the expectations, but then Palace had that great start to Oliver Glasner's career in London, and it just hasn't really worked out in this new season. Bob could have been a great pick from C had he been fit. He had a great pre-season. I completely agree. He wouldn't have been nailed on, but I think he would have been first choice right winger, even over Savio. I really like Oscar Bob. He's got a lot of potential. If he were sacked, I would want Nagelsmann or Tuchel. Yeah, I mean, Nagelsmann is currently with Germany, so that'll be quite tough to orchestrate. And Tuchel is kind of a short-term manager. That could work for a year or two, but then you could see tensions bubbling with the board and Tuchel. And his league record isn't great. He won it once, the year before last against Dortmund, because let's face it, Dortmund pretty much fumbled it on the final day. And they also had some very poor results towards the end of that season. And then, yeah, obviously Leverkusen did what they did last year, but not a big fan of Tuchel in the leagues. I think he's a good cup manager, not so much in the leagues, which might be harsh. Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce versus United will be a great match in October. Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, they face Spurs as well, don't they, in the Europa League league phase. Is it good to change Robinson for Lewis before many people do the transfer and Lewis getting the price change? Possibly. I mean, Fulham's fixtures turn for the worse, and City have a great run from 7 to 11, but Lewis could be benched next week, especially if he starts in the Champions League in midweek. So it's always a risky pick to make an early transfer for a rotation risk, which for me, Rico Lewis is. Should I still look positively for my Savio over Rodgers' long-term punt? Even though he hasn't started today, he has a huge upside in comparison to Rodgers with City's fixtures upcoming. Yeah, I mean, as long as you've got good squad depth, you should be fine. But if Savio is subbed on for 1 point, that's going to be very frustrating this week. Now, it will be a major concern for you if Savio starts in the Champions League, which is very likely, it seems, at this stage. Now, the reason why I've gone for Rodgers personally is the value. You know, he saves you quite a lot of money, and he's got Ipswich away this week, some decent fixtures for a 4-game period. But ultimately, Savio has the higher upside, you are right, and he's a very exciting player. Harrison says, yeah, I was really high on Palace coming into this season. I had them finishing as high as 9th, still early days, but 16th to 12th is more realistic now. I agree. It's between them and West Ham, I think, for the most disappointing. Maybe a team that people back to do well. There's probably someone else, isn't there? But I'm probably forgetting them. Just to park you as predictions, 3-1 to City, 2-1 Arsenal, 2-1 Brentford, 2-1 Brighton, hopefully 6-0. Everton 1, Palace 1, Forest 2, Fulham 1, and then Liverpool with a 4-0 win against Wolves. Fair enough. I've gone quite similar with a lot of them, but I've gone a bit rogue with some. I think I said 3-2 Brentford, 2-1 City, 3-1 Arsenal, 3-1 Liverpool. 3-0 I said, 3-0 Liverpool. Who do you think will win the Europa League? It could be someone who drops out of the Champions League, right? I think from those that remain, United would have a good chance. They've got pedigree, history, and I think they're a cup team, in my opinion. I think they're not consistent in the league, but they can get results and go far. So I can see United going to the semi-finals or beyond. They'll be one of my top picks for this competition, but I'm probably forgetting somebody else, to be quite honest with you. 5.5 million went for Salah, captain, in hope I can make ground back up. I've just wildcarded and got Haaland in for future weeks. I like the look of that, to be honest, and that will be one major advantage of wildcarding in 7. Keeping Salah for the Wolves game, I'd rather have him compared to Haaland this week, but it's just been a very, very difficult one to predict. I thought Salah would pull ahead of Haaland in the last 2 weeks, but it's been the opposite. So I think you've done the right call. Wildcarding in 7, getting Haaland for those fixtures, and keeping Salah for 1 more week. There aren't any UCL dropouts to the Europa League with the new format. Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, I think in years gone by, I always would have said it would have been a Champions League team dropping out. But yeah, you are right about that. The new format would have changed it. I don't know. I think United just spring to mind for me, but difficult. Yeah, Newcastle, possibly. These guys try to pull up in the league via cash, not going well. United and Wolves have been horrid too. I do think performance-wise, United have been better to the last season, but whenever they've come up against a decent team, like Brighton, they've lost. And against Liverpool, they got easily beaten at home. As for Newcastle, they've only lost once. Their performances have been bad, but the results have been decent. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Palace or West Ham for that answer. 2-1 Villa, 2-2 United Spurs, Bournemouth 2, Saints 0. Fair enough, yeah. I think that's pretty solid. If Villa drop down to the Europa League, Unai Emery will be cooking with his record in the comp. Yeah, I mean, that would have been the case. I mean, that would have been a great shout if that was still a thing. But yeah, people were right to point out that that's no longer a thing. I think Mourinho's Fenerbahce and United and maybe Bilbao have the best chance. I don't think Fenerbahce will win it. I mean, Mourinho has a great record. I mean, we all know what a great manager he is, but I don't think he will win it. Not this season. Let's actually have a look. I just want to have a look at all the teams in Europa League and give my final 2 cents on this. Ajax, I mean, they were terrible last season, weren't they? But yeah, they are doing better this time round. Well, they are mid-table, but still better than what they were doing last year. They're currently top of the Europa League phase. Yeah, I think Bilbao is definitely one to mention. I think Sociedad have fallen off a little bit. Otherwise, I would have really backed them to go far. But you know what? I think Man United, on paper, they are probably the best team in it. I know you could say Spurs, but I think when you counter mentality, the cup runs recently, and the history, I think United would be my favourites. Never mind. Yeah, no worries, mate. Sorry to keep asking about Savio. This is my final question. If he is to start in UCL midweek, is it worth just firming the L and moving him on straight away? It's tricky because certain players, especially at that age, they can recover very quickly and play 2 games in a couple of days. I just think if he starts and plays 90 in midweek, it really reduces his chances of playing in the weekend. So if he does play the 90, I probably would look elsewhere. But it is very tricky because Savinho could easily start in Game Week 7 or 8 and do really well in those plum fixtures for City. So it's not an easy question, but I probably will lean towards selling him if he starts in midweek. If Rashford performs this weekend, would he be a shout for you? Possibly. I just think there's a lot of rotation with the wingers, Amad Diallo, Rashford and Garnacho, and my favourite would be the Argentine at the moment. Mourinho does miracles, so we should never rule the special one. Yeah, but I do think his best days are behind him as a manager, and he's not managing elite teams anymore like he used to do. Fenerbahce are decent, but yeah, it's a different story. I know he won the Europa Conference League with Roma, which was a big achievement, but yeah, I think United have a better chance. Want to see how Ten Hag prefers, who Ten Hag prefers between Højlund and Xerxes? I think Højlund, and he is the better goal scorer between the two. Oddly enough, I think Xerxes has better positioning, but Højlund's the better finisher. How many points do you think this game week? I've been asked this in the last 2, and it hasn't been great for me. I'll just be happy with a green arrow. I'll take a green arrow, and hoping that the players I sold don't go ballistic. I was surprised he subbed out Xerxes last season. Thought he would remove a winger for Højlund, but Ten Hag, worst part tactically is sub-making. Yeah, in the last game. Yeah, his subs can be awful. I agree there. Sometimes I really find myself questioning what he's doing. UCL Porto's most impressive achievement, for sure. I mean, that was in a year where Arsenal went invincible and they had one of the best teams in Europe. Real Madrid and Barcelona are always up there. Bayern Munich, Man United, still solid. Yeah, I mean, that's a great achievement. Europa League, could Ange be right when he says, I always win second season? Well, Spurs have won Europa League before, but it's going to be a tough ask for them. I mean, what I would say, the change in the format with no Champions League teams dropping out, that really helps the likes of Spurs and United in terms of their chances. So if there's ever a time to do it, it would be now. What manager's in trouble the most? I think Gary O'Neill, Sean Dyche would be up there. Amongst the high-profile jobs, so to speak, I think Ten Hag would be very, very close. But yeah, it's between Sean Dyche and Gary O'Neill for me. Sahil, with that comment, I mean, I'll keep things diplomatic. But thank you to everyone for watching. It has been a pleasure talking to you for the past 3 hours. It has been a blast. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this stream to as many likes as possible. And let's keep on pushing towards new goals like 30,000 subscribers. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. I did give 10 today, so enjoy them. And be sure to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/DylanRCM, as well as the community tab on YouTube, so you're always up to date with my videos. Use Your Fantasy content is headed your way. The best Limitless team is already out, so you can already watch it. And as for the best wildcard team and team selection, they will be published very shortly in the next couple of days, and the deadline stream on Tuesday with all the usual Game Week 7 content for FPL. Also join the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify, and leave a 5-star review if you can. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. All you have to do is use your phone or tablet in order to make that. Yeah, Lopetegui's a decent shout, but he's only just joined, and I think he'll be given the benefit of the doubt. I don't see him lasting long at West Ham, though. I really don't. Thank you, FPL Kevy. Have a good one. Are there any upcoming games where you see Mykolenko starting? Possibly. I'd say game week 8 or 9. I wouldn't want to start him against Newcastle at home, and that's where I'd really be hoping for Lewis to get the start. So my defensive line is arguably a little bit short, but if I had gone for Mazraoui, he would have faced Aston Villa away in game week 7. So yeah, game week 7 is always a bit of an awkward one, but it's probably just going to be Lewis, Trent, and Gabriel for me. Will Haaland score the same as Kane against Slovan this UCL game week? It's possible. Never rule out Erling Haaland, but I don't think he gets 21 points. I think he'll probably get a brace. Maybe a hat-trick, but I don't think 21 points. I panicked and couldn't decide on a wildcard, says Morgoth. Is that Lord of the Rings reference? If so, very well done. So I'm stuck on my current 11. Henderson, Dalot, Robertson, Gabriel, Luis Diaz, Semenyo, Palmer, Saka, Dibbling, Wood, and Haaland. That's still very strong. Considering it's not a wildcard team. Should be fairly competitive. Dibbling in there is actually quite interesting. I do like him as a 4-point Fabian midfielder. Not a big fan of starting him week in, week out, but I'm guessing you'll wildcard fairly soon anyway. But yeah, this is a good 11, in my opinion. Thank you, Sil. See you very soon. He said the achievement he cherishes most was what he did with Chelsea. He also said finishing second with United is the most difficult thing he has ever done. Yeah. I still think the poor one is his greatest achievement, though. And also a treble with Inter Milan is another great achievement in his long list. But Spurs last won Europa in the 80s. Yeah, of course. But that still helps a little bit, in my opinion. It's like with Arsenal not winning the Champions League. I think history and mentality does play a big part in these sorts of things. That's why Real Madrid with 15, 16 now, I've lost count. I think it's 15. Is it? No, I think it's 16. Bloody hell, I forgot. Yeah, I think it does play a part. Great stream as always. Best of luck to everyone and enjoy the weekend. Likewise to you, Harrison. Green arrows only. Hopefully, that is the aim. Who do you think is the most completed player at the moment? The most complete player? That is a very tricky question. I mean, you could say someone like Valverde, right? A kind of an all-rounder. You kind of favour midfielders in this regard. Bellingham, these sorts of players. But that's a tricky one. Yeah, most complete player. It could be one of those. I might be forgetting a lot of players here, by the way. Thank you, Ezra. I'll see you very soon. And green arrow to you as well. That is the aim. Amadou Onana. 71, 72, and 83, 84. Spurs won Europa. Yeah, they've got 2 Europa League titles. I think they've got 1 or 2 more European trophies. I think it's just 1 more, but yeah. Champions League final, of course, very recently. Might be too early to ask, but what do you think about Dalot or Romero in for Robinson in Game Week 7? I'd rather go for Dalot. I think United have a slightly better defence than Spurs. The likes of Dalot and Mazraoui give you bonus points. I know Romero's got the goal potential, but I'd rather go for Dalot. Spurs' first ever English team to win in Europe, though. As we know, Celtic first British. Yeah. Well, is that Europa? Or is it in Europe as well? Because I'm fairly sure Liverpool, with 6 titles, I think they've won before. Oh, no, but in 71, 72, you are right. Yeah, I mean, you pointed the fact there, so fair enough. I do think Spurs were they the first team to win a double? If not, it was Arsenal. Yeah, I need to double check that as well. There's a lot of history to be learnt. Orange Apple says Gundogan as a good option to consider now that Rodri's out for the whole season. Yeah, I also think Rico Lewis benefits from this injury with game time. And that's one of the key reasons why I've gone for him. But with Gundogan, I'd wait a little while longer, see how he plays today and in midweek, how many minutes he plays. Spurs Cup Winners' Cup in 61-62. Yeah, exactly. So I think they've got 3 European trophies. I think Arsenal got 1 or 2, which is embarrassing for a club of that stature. I do think they will win the Champions League one day. I'm just hoping it's sooner rather than later. Do you think Carvalho starts? Yes, but I'm not completely convinced about it. There's always the possibility of Schade, Lewis Potter, and Mbeumo starting together. Yeah, no worries, Parky. I appreciate the history lesson anyway. Cheers, bro. May Haaland blank. I agree. Hopefully Salah blanks as well, but I'm asking for a lot. Preston North End, first team to win a double in 1888-89. Also the first team to go unbeaten, but it was a shorter format. I'm not sure if it was 26 league games or something like that. So they were the first to go unbeaten, and then Arsenal, of course, the first to do it in a 38-game season. Of course, still a massive achievement, and both of them will be facing each other in the Carabao Cup. Thank you everyone for watching. Drop a like if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream. I'll see you very soon for more UCL Fantasy and FPL content. Take care and enjoy the football. I'll see you very soon for those pieces of content, and I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 6.